media personality,
and I'm all out of bubble.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
You know, it's one of those mornings, kids. It's one of those days. It's one of those times. It's one of those situations. Johnny Million, how are you this fine day?
Hey, Hal Sparks.
My curiosity is, and this is, you're my man on the street. You're you represent the unvarnished truth of of the Jim Varneys in my life. If anybody, nobody recalls, you know Jim Varney, right?
I just said, hey, Vern.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that. I didn't hear that part. That's my fault. I should always assume a hey, Vern from you in those circumstances. Yes. That said, have you done any Christmas shopping yet?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Mostly online.
A little bit. A little bit. I have as well. I've been doing a decent amount of like my cyber shopping and the like. Mm-hmm. Now it's hard when you're cyber shopping to assume, I guess, that the shelves are empty, like you're being told that they are by the newsage at every turn. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the cyber shelves are only empty, I think, when you hear. Well, I guess when you click on it and it says on Amazon, for example, available, multiple buying options are available, meaning that the standard salespeople are not necessarily, don't necessarily have it in stock. They don't necessarily think of it in terms of, you're going to be hunting for the best price. Some of them will not even say new attached to the thing. You'll see something like very good condition and be left to wonder what that could mean. That's a curious thing. And especially when you're online and if you're buying something that's special for somebody else, right? That's, then you're really walking on, all right, this is a gift and I've got limited time and there may be limited availability. What in the dear Lord am I supposed to do about this particular gift if it shows up and their definition of very good and my definition of very good are not
very different.
That's right. Are a little, the scale is slightly askew. And askew. And welcome everybody in the chat room and hi and welcome to the show. Hey. It's Saturday again. And so we have this kind of, it's been a crazy news week. We're going to get to plenty of stuff. The Jussie Smollett verdict came down this week. Oy. There was a tornado that hit the central United States, southern part of Illinois, parts of Kentucky were hit very bad. Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, who curiously, as a Democrat, got elected in the same way that the Republican is still the senator of that state, and yet our elections aren't trustworthy. But he's asked Biden for help in dealing with this in swift order. The death toll they're expecting is somewhere. He said it could be close to 70, possibly 100 because of a factory that was hit. People were inside. It's harrowing, and we in certain parts of the country, tornadoes are an expected part of life, and as we deal with the shifts in climate change, they may increase in volume and intensity, or they may increase just in intensity and be fewer and further between, but they will definitely be affected by the change in climate over time. And it would seem that adults in the room, like the Democratic Party, which is currently the only functioning governing party in the country. We have a one-party system right now, kids.
Yeah, I saw that tweet of yours and I was like, he's right.
Yeah, there is no Republican Party right now. There are Republicans. There are some that are still zombieing this party through its paces. And there's an assumption in the media that everything where there's two is balanced. which is a very strange reflex on their part.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, they do not exist as a functioning party. They have no interest. The debt ceiling deal was made, but with this kind of like corrupt little shuffle within the Republican Party, so that they can all agree to look the other way. It was I would call it the Jim Jordaning of Republican policy making. They'll let stuff that allegedly they're against happen. They just look the other way when it does. And instead of, being overt about their participation in it. Now, right now, there's a lot of hay being made about Biden's poll numbers, and the Republicans are just beating their chests about this nonstop, that this indeed is they've got a toehold. This is their Drago Rocky moment. He's not a man. He's not a machine. He's a man. Nepravda. And they're counting on riding this into next fall. That they think what they're running on currently, as far as how they're criticizing the Biden administration and the policies they're in, are going to be their strategy in the spring, in the summer, and in the fall. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I myself, Johnny Million, as you may be aware, I'm vacillating, as a Libra is wont to do. I am vacillating between letting them down easy and just getting out of the way as the crash happens. Because I feel like giving them a sort of a reality check, as I have been doing. When especially talking about inflation.
Are they ready for that, really?
I don't think so. Yes, somebody's written, Bob in our chat says CRT 2022. That's right. And we're already a level 1 hype train. Don't forget twitch.tv/HalSparks. Great way to support the show. Subscribe if you have Amazon Prime, and many of you do, if only around the holiday seasons. You can subscribe and it doesn't cost you a dime. I'm running my words together because I'm trying to talk really swiftly. So the big talking point, though, is inflation. That's right. Inflation it's the Biden Achilles heel. It's game, set, match. If you look on, Roy Blunt, the miserable senator from Missouri, hence named, in fact, on his own sort of mental state most of the time. He even came out today saying, it's a 30-year high. Folks, 30 years since we have had this kind of, almost 40 or whatever, since we've had this kind of inflation. Since 1982. It's a long time ago. That's how long it's been since we've had this kind of inflation. Now, what kind of inflation was that in 1982? I forget if a Democrat or a Republican was president. I was so young. I just remember that
we were 2 years into the
something
administration was that.
Either way, it was. It was probably still Carter's fault, but
of course,
and many people remember the Great Pandemic of 1981, which of course caused the 7.2 inflation in that 1 year. You recall the 700,000 plus Americans who had died in 1981 from
that inflation.
That inflation that caused the inflation. When we all shut down, when there was no production in the United States in all of 1981. And because it couldn't be Republican tax policy and their absolute releasing the reins on tax cuts, and that idea that they were going to even.
I like to call that the beginning and the end.
All right. How so?
That's when Trump Jr. was really starting to feel himself.
So is Wild Oats.
Yeah.
Yes. That's when Trump is like, hey, my dad and I got away with not renting to black people. We've dodged any major comeuppance, And right now, people are loaning us money based on buildings we're never going to build. I think this is a system we could export to China as a building methodology. The Trump ghost cities of the future, the ghost casinos that Trump were just a gleam in his eye at that point. In discussing though the rise in in the inflation numbers, he also said consumer confidence all-time low. All-time low. Now, is that materially true? Is consumer confidence at an all-time low? Are people, and there's two markers you could use to decide whether consumer confidence is at an all-time low. One, you could look at how much stuff people are purchasing, both with cash and on credit. Now, the consumer confidence part of it was based, it used to be based for a good, 3 decades, especially on credit card payments. Do you think you can buy something on a credit card and pay it off over time?
Right.
And so do you have confidence that you're going to have a job or enough money to pay this off over time? So you're willing to put it on your credit card, which is a bit weird as far as consumer confidence. It's more like job confidence and other factors, but okay, I see where they were going with that. But it would seem that if you had the cash on hand and you felt comfortable spending that cash on hand, because once you spent that cash on hand, it's gone. It's not based on credit or any kind of fix from credit in any way, that you were willing to part with your hard-earned money for good for these goods and keep these goods, one would think your confidence was relatively high comparatively. Now, I can understand how, if you look at the giant economic numbers that look like a swarm of bees to anybody who is in a Wall Street, on a bank of Wall Street computers, I can see how you would come away with that idea that it's better psychologically. Someone told you once that if people put stuff on a credit card and long form their purchases versus a TV that in 1992 you would have to put on a credit card to be able to afford a TV that size, you can now buy with cash for $345, and it also has internet built in. And if you buy it now, they'll give you a free keyboard, and it's basically a computer because you can use the internet on it anytime you want using a browser built into the television set, which if you showed it to someone in 1992, their head would explode, and they would, if they've seen La Jetée or knew the story of 12 Monkeys, would think you were from the future and there to get some sort of cure for something. So we have to take a break, and we're already blazing through this. And we're already, by the way, at a level 3 hype train. Level 1 hype train is level 2 has started on Twitch. That always feels good right out of the gate, Johnny, you and me. But I've got a new screen to debut on the live stream in a moment, and I'm very excited about it.
Goody.
I've got it coming up. I was tweaking on it, and everything was fine until one of my monitors went out, which is the one that I used to show stuff, and I was like, what happened? And it turned out cats crawling on a desk will sometimes knock a tiny cable free.
Yeah, they will.
Yes, they will.
Yeah, boy.
And you'll look at everything and go, what could I? Oh, of course.
Yeah, then you turn and go, you
little pumpkin. All right, we'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Megaworldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Infotainmentwars.com is where you subscribe on YouTube. We'll be back. Now, all right, so this is the new, hold on, let me see if this screen works. Yay! If you're looking on the U's and the tubes right now, you'll be able to see you and me and I can show articles.
To the U's and the tubes.
Yeah, if you look on there or what have you. I had to move a couple of things around, and I probably need a graphic that has the name of the show on it right there,
They know you.
Yeah, but I still think, you know what I mean? Like we still need a something. Something, a little something.
Oh, something.
It's always a something, as Rosanna Dana used to say. Rosanna Dana. Let's see. Let's just do a title. And let's just do a This is very big. I'll just do this one, and I'll tape it in here.
60 seconds. 60 seconds, gentlemen.
Oh, look out. Somebody, a little Freudian slip.
As long as you don't have it on the air, we're all good, right?
I don't know. I didn't stream that at all.
Lovely, lovely. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry if you lose ad revenue on that or monetization on that video. So
Yeah. No, I have a bleep button. I had to add one for you. We figured it out, though. It's okay.
Oh,
We're fine.
just for me. Thank you.
Just for you.
I've never heard you or Johnny ever slip up once
That's
before.
right. Never. Not ever. Not once.
Years doing this show.
Never. Thank you for noticing. Okay.
Oh, that does look neat.
Yeah. Okay. Save the way, and then we go there.
I'm going to smash that like.
10
Look at
seconds,
that.
guys.
Thanks. And then I put this, add to this, add to that. And then I know I'm only on 1 day a week. I get it. I'm going to have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the House Bar Show. Wow. And then a guitar note, and then progressive, and all that. Yeah, it's going to be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the House Bar Show. Wow. And then a guitar note, and then progressive, and all that. Yeah, it's going to be good.
The Hal Sparks radio program, Megaworldwide.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Welcome back. Yes, it is going to be good because I just added a little graphic element to the using the tubes so that not only can I show Johnny Million's beautiful face and my own self, but now I can actually show the articles that I'm referencing in a lot of these situations, which is kind of a good thing. So this is kind of what I would call standard fare in the conversation about inflation that we've had lately. And that would be the consumer prices rise more than expected as energy costs surge is the phrase on the CNBC website. And this is kind of what you've been seeing for the last couple of months. I think this one's from October. Things have gone down, actually. The amount that they went up when this article was published, they've actually gone down that amount, effectively erasing October, let's say, in a lot of these cases. The gains, came and went. And like the stock market, do you own any stocks, Johnny Million? You don't have to tell me which ones because I don't want to know what giant corporations you're beholden to.
401k things.
Okay, you don't have like a Robinhood account or one of those things?
No, I don't do that.
Okay. I do that because my girlfriend's kid started doing it when he turned 18. He was like, I want to get one of these accounts. And he was thinking about setting it up and I didn't use it. So I was like, all right, I'll start an account so I can look at, see how it works and whether it's worth doing and that kind of stuff. And so we kind of co-bought things, penny stocks and little things like that. And anybody who watches the financial news, a lot of times, if you watch the stock market, if you ever see it, man, some days it's in the red. Oh, buddy. Oh, it's gone down 3/8 of a percentage point. And dear God, what does this say for the outlook of the markets? And people will gabba all day long on the financial, with the long form yield bond interest rate, Fed derailing and money printing, and also the cost of frozen concentrated orange juice, which I think is mostly what you and I know about stocks from trading places. And
pork bellies.
Yeah, it's pork bellies and sell. So buy low, sell high. We entered at a good time in when they kind of genericized the stock market for the who's at home like us. Well, if you watch it, you're like, oh my God, it's in the red today. Now, when it was in the green for the last 10 days, they were going, this is great. And then it's in the red that it's in right now is still above the green it was for the last 10 days. Right. And then it goes up again the next day's green, and then the next day's red. And so again, like if yesterday had never happened, if you took yesterday out of the equation on one of the red days, it would just be green. right? Or it would have been stabilized in, a little bit of movement up or stay there, whatever. Like that's how I think a lot of us, when you think in terms, when you're not like a swing trader or a day trader, you're looking at it as, if you're not Clarence Beeks, thank you, Carol. If you're not Clarence Beeks, or the Dukes, you look at the value of your investments. You go, I like this company. I think it's got legs. It's sort of a long haul investment like my house. I think a lot of, and I know a lot of people on Wall Street think of what would be retail investors as incredibly naive, don't understand the market, and because they don't understand what kind of money they could be making by just watching how it fluctuates. They watch little candles appear in the stock thing, and then they go, if I sell it right now, it's going to go down 2 days, and then I'll buy it then, same stock I had, and ride it back up, make 5%, sell it, get out, and I'm making money on this fluctuating stock by just putting my money in and taking it out and putting my money in and taking it out of this company, which kind of does the company no good. It's, it's not like you're investing in them. You know what I mean? It's like if somebody was like, how do put it, like you help a buddy with rent, right? He needs help with his rent 1 month. You're like, he goes, I got fired. I don't know what I'm going to do about rent next month. I have this job on the line, but it doesn't start till February 1st, right? I don't know what I'm going to do. And you go, tell you what, buddy, I trust you're going to be around, and I know every time I loan you money, even though I tell you not to, you give me, $10 more than I loan you, and you're just good about it that way. So I believe in you, and therefore I'm going to help you out with your rent. Not for the $10, which is nice, but because I believe in you and I want you to be around for a long time. And in a long time, if I ever need a favor when I'm old, we'll be friends for a long time, because I don't have a friend who was out on the street because he missed his rent 1 month and I was too much of a jerk to help, right? Okay, so in this fantasy that I've just crafted that's based entirely on a friend of mine, and in one case, a friend of ours, you imagine loaning that person that money, but then going, you know what, I've been thinking about this afternoon, I need my money back. I don't think you're going to do it, or whatever. And then Wednesday going, you know what, I'll give it back to you, but only if I think because I think you're good for the $10. And then 2 days later, I don't think you're good for the $10. Give me the money back. Just like back and forth, all month long. And by the end of the month, that dude does not know whether or not he's going to be able to pay his rent, because you have been vacillating. He might be on the day when you go, nope, I don't think I'm going to get my $10, so forget it, right? That's how a lot of these, like the Wall Street traders, the day traders, the swing traders operate. They don't really care about.
That's the long and short of it, really.
Yeah, and that's a hyper simplification, but I would also say that it's I think the mentality of a lot of the people that do that kind of stuff. If anybody wants to see something hilarious, watch the Johnny Bravo dude on YouTube, or any of the other swing traders who are just out of their minds, couldn't give a crap about any company that they're investing in, and hope they crash so they can buy some in, knowing full well that other people will pick up the pieces. It's silly. So anyways, in this particular case, most people, I think, most retail investors who are looked at as fundamentally naive, but if you look at sort of the index funds over time, if you hang in there, a lot of stuff does pay off over time in a slower, but better than a savings rate, of which, because there's no interest rates right now, there is none. If you're going to have a 2% or 6% or an 8% improvement, a diversified stock portfolio for a lot of even lower middle class people now, because of things like Robinhood, is possible in a way that was only possible to robber barons. Honest to God, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, do you know how much inside info you had to have to be able to buy a stock and trust that it would go up at all? And now you can scroll through that on any number of apps. The tide has changed and is affecting things. Retail and meme stocks are affecting the market on a measurable level and boggling the minds of many of the people that are supposed to be on the know. They are all like, no, this market doesn't make any sense at all. Well, that's because there are enough retail investors who are now in there going, no, I think Apple and other companies like it are going to be around for decades and decades. And I'm looking at this as a ground floor stock buy. And if I look at any other company that I should have bought, Sony stock before, 30 years ago or 50 years ago, had you invested $25 in blah, blah, blah. We've all heard those stories. And if it's money you can part with, especially if, during the time when you couldn't go out and stimulus money was there, a lot of people were retail investing in that and they're watching their portfolios go up. Ask Gen Z, there's a bunch of that going on. We have to take a break. But when I come back, I want to talk about, there is a bifurcation in the economic thought form right now because the economic theories that we are operating on in the modern era were written when there were less than 1 billion people on Earth and are not adequate to describe what's going on. How many people are involved in this economy, considering there used to be dozens and now there are millions. The 1% in America is 3 million people. We always think of the 1% as like 15 people, kind of when you mentally picture it. 3 million people. The upper 10% is something in the order of 60 million people. And they have families. We'll be back right after this. I think we're going to be back. Here we go. And we're going to break. There we go. Nope. All right. I'm just going to assume music's playing. And word break. Because that's how I roll. Let me see. And I'll grab this. Let's see. I need to grab this is. And then I'll go back to. I've got to set up a button for the you and I with the article. There you are. Okay. And I've also got to make you bigger on this side. Hi, everybody. Welcome, chat room. Good to see you. Hello.
And 60 seconds already.
All right. Look at that.
Short break this time.
That's all right. That happens. We're coming back in a second. Hold on. Let's see. Control click.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I thought there was going to be like a new one every break. I was so excited.
You want more, Hal? We'll give you more.
Okay.
Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. Booyah!
Oh, dear God. The terrible news, Johnny Million, that inflation has hit a 39-year high. That's what it is. That's not the news. That's Brazil. Hold on. Market Watch. Inflation is running rampant in the U.S.
Oh my goodness.
Here's what it is and isn't. Now, almost all of it is energy, motor vehicles, and what's called shelter, meaning housing prices. It does not mean lean-tos, tents on the street, and rental prices. Well, I mean, honestly, shelter, Market Watch, what are you doing? Shelter, yeah.
It's very like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Totally. Yeah, it's meant to be. Do you feel it all like you're being manipulated at all? Down below it, though, food's up there. But why is food up there? Because food, unlike a lot of the digital stuff, has to be brought to you in a specific time window. And that time window is dictated by a certain price index. What would that be? Energy. Gasoline prices, oil prices, and by the way, these are, and my favorite thing about this whole conversation, and it's been the biggest thing that's been driving me crazy about this, is the components of the 6.8% inflation rate. This is Market Watch talking about this. Contribution to inflation over 12 months. 12 months ago, if you recall, or closer to 14 at this point, but, you know, that's why the prices are starting to taper a little bit. 14 months ago, oil was at negative $37 a barrel. Oil companies and oil producing countries were paying people to take it off their ships. And because no one was traveling because of COVID, no one was driving anywhere. The air got really clean on the earth in a measurable way because millions, if not billions of vehicles all turned off at the same time.
It was crazy.
Right. And inflation, as they're marking it, looks a lot, as far as a news talking point, looks a lot less sexy if you line it up against 2019 numbers. If you erase 2020 and the abnormal aspects of the economy, 2019 to 2021 inflation, while you might see a bump that you could argue if you also take out 2020, you also take out some of the expenditure, the extra UI money that might be driving up some goods. But if you take out the culling of cattle, which is contributing to this year's rise in beef prices. If you take out the number of eggs that were thrown out and the people who rely on them for their subsistence still having bills to pay, so needing to raise the price slightly this year compared to the year before to compensate for the total lack of sales that they experienced, and the amount of crops that were plowed under because there were no hands to harvest them.
Yeah.
If you pretend that's all normal and you go, this is inflation year over year. Now understand the number they were citing, and this is kind of the point I was making earlier, that the number from 1982, which was higher, had none of the aspects of the COVID shutdown, which is a once-in-a-lifetime experience for most of us, I think.
God,
right, Johnny Million?
So.
Yes. Well, at least so far. None of us have seen so far. I should always...
So far, until we get that second life you and I have been talking about.
Exactly. Well, I mean, we'll talk about Meta later on in the show. Do you know about Meta? Have you signed? Did you realize you're already probably part of Meta?
Oh, is that the weird... is that where my personality is going to carry on?
Yes.
As an AI?
It's basically a cartoon world that Facebook created that you're going to walk around in looking like a kind of low-res early 2000s CGI cartoon
Which
character.
I will be able to control with my ghost.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So
I like how this is turning out.
it's good. Now, we're talking about 6.8% inflation rate, Johnny Million. 6.8%. Now, if you take energy out of that, as far as oil and the like, because the price goes up, and this is compared again to last year. It is up 6.8% over last year when it was just coming out of negative numbers. Now, does anyone think that that's a genuine marker of inflation based on economic policy and the buying patterns of the American public, or the needs or wants materially of any American citizen?
But from negative, I mean, you could still say, do you really have to go up from negative is what I'm trying to say.
I'm just saying that this is the same way that some guys will brag about their manhood by measuring from their rectum. Now,
oh my,
which is cheating
and dangerous.
Yes, right. Yeah, exactly. Because especially if you use one of those shop
tape measures,
tape measures, it'll snap back. Yeah, you don't. Yeah. So motor vehicles are up again. Chip delays making their way over from Asia. Shipping was down. Cars are gigantic. the shipping revolving around those kind of things, the ones that weren't made in the United States or the components that were made outside the United States, those are larger components needing more space on a ship. The cost of a shipping container went up exorbitantly because of COVID, not because of stimulus, not because of the American people buying something, not because of a tax break, because over 700,000 Americans, plus, by the way, because the Trump administration downplayed those numbers in every measure, and DeSantis will be running on the fact that he hid those numbers in 2024 when he's the person who's tapped on the shoulder by Trump. Those components are harder to ship, take up more space than an iPhone even, which is why the price of the iPhone didn't gouge up, or a lot of other kind of electronics like that, because the shipping space was marginal considering how many you could bring. The bigger the component, the bigger the element, the larger the part of a shipping container it took up, the more expensive the factor of that shipping container became in the overall cost of that thing. You don't eat any of it, because think of how many cars you can put in a shipping container versus how many iPhones or Galaxy 7s or whatever you could put in one. You get my point.
Yep.
Shelter, housing prices. Again, we had a the lumber shortage earlier this year, right? That got remedied in short order and set back the house building market off by a little bit when people were signing up to buy them or whatever. But this is houses, their prices are going up because largely people who lived in apartments or smaller houses realized I can actually do most of my job from home. There's no real reason for the next maybe 2-5 years to transition, if ever, back to a normal office. Now, I personally believe that's exaggerated in a lot of industries, and going back to a gathering place to work. There's a reason why we've always done it as people. The face-to-face does matter, and so it will factor back in. But some of the industries, real estate, investment firms, as long as you have fast enough internet and you're willing to wake up early no matter what the time zone is, who cares where you are? And so you're going to want a bigger house. So a lot of bigger houses sold. People moved further away from the city. They suburbed rural communities. They gentrified the sticks over the last year. And so house building can't keep up. And the house prices of houses that, quite frankly, 2 years ago weren't worth crap, but now can be flipped, went up a surprisingly measurable amount. It would be a real estate boom in any other circumstance if we didn't have 770,000 dead Americans and 1,000 dead Republicans a week right now. So those are the three big ones in this, right? I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
If you're croaking because of COVID, the anybody who wouldn't take the bet, even in a Trump casino, that you voted for Trump is an idiot, and should probably be on Fox Business next to Maria Bartiromo talking about year-over-year inflation figures. And again, a lot of the businesses we're seeing, especially food service businesses, where they're having trouble getting staff back, so having to raise the price of their goods because their margin was already slim and their staff is more expensive now. Because the $15 minimum wage that was being fought virulently for during the campaign, in many ways and in most markets, was answered by COVID. Was literally created by a factor of, I don't want to go back to work because it's not safe. And if you're going to coax me back in there, my number to endanger my own life is way higher than $7.68 an hour, considering what I can purchase with that. And so that became a factor in, that will drive 1% of permanent inflation, because businesses will recognize people have more to spend. People who have more to spend buy slightly better things. People who want slightly better things will save up for even still better things. And luxury goods go up, and that's why they track them and blah, blah, blah. So, on the other hand, we're hearing 6.8%, right? That's the number you're hearing right now. 6.8% compared to 7.2 in 1982. Again, with no pandemic, no nothing. Recreation is up 2.58%.
Okay.
Medical care up overall is up about 2.4%. Clothing, which is, considering that a lot of clothing that came from China initially, ask Walmart, ask Target about our trade deficit with China. Most of that stuff, those factories have been shut down effectively by a lot of the buyers in the United States because of slave labor used to produce cotton in Xinjiang. The Uyghur Muslims being pushed into forced labor to, wait for it, United States of America post-Civil War, support the cotton crop for clothing and apparels in general, and sheets and whatnot. That, even with that cut off, the rise in that cost rate in apparel, while it's up year over year, is marginally down in some cases from 2019. How is that possible? I thought the essence of these kind of things was cheap labor. The essence of these things was buying these things and getting them sewn in sweatshops and whatnot, and that's what your average Walmart and Target shopper wants. Is a cheap shirt that looks like $1 million but was sewn by a 9-year-old, right?
Yeah.
With cotton that was gathered through forced labor. But apparently not. Apparently there's a lot of other ways to come about that material that does not require that. And the marginal difference in the cost is something that the average American consumer, and even the below average American consumer, is willing to put up with, especially when their wages have gone up for the first time in decades. So going into the Christmas season, I had a big feeling, we got to take a break, but I had the stuff about empty shelves that we were hearing has kind of faded, if you noticed, in the recent little bit. The empty shelves argument, while you'll still hear it at Fox News and Newsmax, and they'll still be showing pictures, by the way, from May of 2020 to give an example of their point. One of the reasons why, oh my God, empty shelves, is in some instances, I'm sure, a fear about supply chain issues that were blown out of proportion, but also a sales pitch. Hey, you better go in there and buy this stuff on Black Friday.
Of course.
You better get there. You probably want to get in there before Black Friday. You probably want to go ahead and get this stuff because it's going to be gone. There's not much of it. And we had one of the best Black Fridays on record. But consumer confidence is down. And inflation is destroying the country. Right? That's the storyline. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Megaworldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. CPI, there you go. Highest in more than 40 years. Over the past 2 months, prices are up at a 10.8% annual rate if you shove stuff up during the holiday season when everybody jacked stuff up. And that's because, oh my God, because usually they drop down lower during Black Friday, but the prices were actually slightly higher on Black Friday, and they still sold a ton of stuff. And they killed a bunch of Chinese stores on Amazon that were, because they were lying about online reviews and they were undercutting like American sellers illegally with click farms. I don't know if you know about any of that stuff, but they have these like review farms in China, and they hire them out in Vietnam, and I'm sure the Macedonian hackers, that's their side gig, but they set up walls of phones that are all they
60
cut and
seconds,
paste
guys.
text. Thanks. They cut and paste text on reviews, and the AI on Amazon is getting better at spotting it, and so they dumped like 60,000 stores that were available before Black Friday from Chinese sellers that were lying and doing these click farming things. Amazing. Breaking news. All right, we're coming back in a second. Hi, chat room. Good to see you. Hello. Thank you guys for subscribing, by the way, and Papa Soup, thank you for gifting the subs. That's really awesome. Shadow Woman, Stargal, Tony from Ireland, thank you guys for gifting subs
10 seconds,
as well.
yes.
Thank you. And Robin, thank you for resubscribing. Lovely. Thank you, Darren, by the way, and 1524 Scooter.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk. We interrupt regular programming to bring you this breaking news.
Breaking news. Hal Sparks is back.
That's right.
What?
Wow.
I think it's important.
Okay.
This is Devin Tingle. Make sure you join me, the Paulacious one, Paul Shivari, the Marvelous one, Dan Marver, and Sports from the Couch's Mike Mercado every Sunday night, 9 p.m. for the Sports Cubicle. But right now, we're clocked in for the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Right. Welcome back. And that's, I notice a huge drop off in sarcasm when you're pitching your own show, Devin. I'm
Right?
just, you know what I mean? Like a huge, the talk about
All of
economic,
a sudden, he seems to take it really seriously.
yeah, we've had a 7.8,
Paulacious one for crying out loud.
that's a 7.8% drop in sarcasm inflation over the last 20 seconds. Cars, for example, have accounted for, and this is according to MarketWatch own thing, which is, again, I tell my regular live stream viewers all the time at infotainmentwars.com and twitch.tv/HalSparks, where you can get to just by going to fwank.com, FWANQ.com, that you need, whenever you see an article, especially with an incendiary headline, that you're like, I don't know. I have a feeling there's a fishhook in this headline because it seems, in most cases, too bad to be true. That what you want to do is you want to scroll down, and depending on the appetite of the regular user of that website or newsroom, if they're deep readers like the New York Times assumes that their readers can handle giant paragraphs. So they'll have big, thick paragraphs. So it's usually paragraph 3 in the New York Times or even the Washington Post. If it's USA Today, or in this case, MarketWatch, you're going to look at it like paragraph 7, because that's the same amount of words. They just break it into more bite-sized chunks to keep you in there. And that's how the fun. I'm sorry to give away trade secrets. Motor vehicles accounted for 20% of the inflation rate in the last 12 months. Cars. New vehicle purchases have jumped 11% in the past year.
Huh.
Used car
Imagine
and truck
charging
prices.
more for them.
Yeah, used car and truck prices are up 31.4%. You can get more for your used car than you could. The person buying your used car will pay more for it. 31% in the year before the pandemic, and the year before that, and the year before that. New and used vehicles prices were roughly unchanged after adjusting for quality improvements, which, by the way, we have reached, if anybody has noticed, the narrowing of sort of Moore's law when it comes to cars. Once you get up, into the area where a percentage of them are driving them themselves, all the other stuff that used to be luxury items, like cruise control. Remember, like a car with cruise control in like the late 80s, early 90s? That was like introducing AI. Look at this. I still got to put my hands on the wheel, but I can take my feet off the pedals. My ankle and my hip thank me, on these long car drives, right? Automated, cars, satellite radio, touch screens, environmental control, heated seats, all the stuff that was like in like a plot point in American Psycho were available in a stock Tercel in 2007. Right? And so there's a narrowing of what that means to have a fancy pants car, right? And hence, used cars retain their value because they have fancy elements that are lasting. There's nothing wrong with these things. The heated seat coils aren't going to go bad in the next 100,000 miles in a lot of these things. Yeah. So many, somebody's like dashboard serves coffee, right? Well, cup holders. I remember when cup holders were like, oh my God, that car has cup holders.
Oh, that was a huge
You know what I
deal.
mean? And then they were so ubiquitous, it became a joke in Bad Boys because Will Smith's Porsche didn't have cup holders. $80,000 car, right? And it didn't have a cup holder in it. So there's been a narrowing of this, like used car value, especially newer used cars over the last 10 years are holding their value longer. They stay comfortable longer. They're cheap, some of the parts in them are cheaper to replace. That's my cat, by the way.
What did he say?
He played with the doorstop. He just went brrrr.
Oh, that's the best.
So, understand that, like, if you watch Fox News or Market Watch or any of these things, you would think it's all eggs and gas, right? Eggs, gas, beef, and toys for Christmas. That is driving it. When in fact, 20% of it is the rise in used car sales. And those cars, by the way, are still selling. The reason the used car and truck prices are up 31% is because they were up 28% and someone had more money to spend for a used car. Consider that for a moment. All right. And again, consider also that the used cars we're talking about are not $60,000 used cars, although some of them certainly are. Some of them are $5,000 used cars, and somebody with a car that they bought for $3,000 suddenly, because of COVID support and all these kind of things, could finally buy a car and maybe even get a touch of a loan because they still had their job even though it was on pause for a car that was worth $6,000. And as somebody who had a rotten spot in the floorboard of my Mitsubishi Montero for the better part of 2 years where you could see the road, I know the value of finally having that, like, over the hump $3,000 that changes your entire transportation picture. You're not going to be buying a Tesla. You're not going to be buying a brand new, or a used Land Rover or something like that. You're going to be buying a used car that is half as old as the one you're driving and 5 times as good.
Pretty much.
But instead of looking at the consumer confidence of the fact that people who had, used cars on their last legs were finally able to get a newer used car that, while its knees are squeaky, it's got maybe another 3 years before its last legs show up, right? But that's not how Wall Street's going to look at it. It's certainly not how Republicans are going to look at it. But what they're going to tell you is the numbers that affect everybody day to day, that Washington's out of touch and this printing money is driving up the inflation rate and all these prices, instead of looking at why. The fact that gas prices fell off a cliff last year because no one was going anywhere, and oil companies aren't notoriously friendly and will make up for that loss in revenue by limiting supply, right? Which is exactly what they did. That's right. And they will drive up until the consumer reaches the breaking point and says, I'm done, I'm getting a low-cost electric car. The Biden administration has set a goal to increase the amount of solar energy in the United States available by 5-fold in the next 20 years. 5-fold. That's not going to come in big solar farms. That's rooftops of houses. That's federal and state tax breaks and
That's awesome.
and founding that. And that's a bunch of electric cars being charged off of sunlight and batteries while you're sleeping. Instead of driving to the corner, gas is going to go up because of that, because fewer and fewer people are going to use it. And it's going to be a prestige fuel for a few. Get used to the idea. and your life is going to get a lot cheaper, a lot quicker on the arc of technology. We got to take a break. We'll be back. Our number is 773-763-9278. There is other news to get to, but I always this one drives me particularly crazy, and we got to nail it a little bit. I can't let them get away with it. We'll be back.
Prestige fuel.
It will be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
I mean, there's going to be. I've been looking at all this, like, because it's kind of in our happy ending zone of things. But we're, and by the way, there's an ad on this Market Watch thing for Wall Street Journal's Global X Start the Experience. Inside the trends shaping our future. AI, blockchain, EVs, and more. And they're the ARK investment funds, which are taking a dip right now as people pull their stuff out and put it in, Doritos and Coca-Cola and gas prices and stuff because they're chasing the inflation dollar as opposed to long-term investment. Short-term investors are gonna do a bunch of that stuff. Long-term investors are going to look towards like the ARK funds and Apple and Microsoft and all those things, and Dell and companies that are focusing on AI and defense industries that will ultimately make the consumer electronic goods that we all rely on by testing it using tax dollars and their own R&D. That's all happening. And while Wall Street Journal is and Market Watch are running these articles about, oh dear God, clutch the pearls, their ads tell you what's really going on. Their ads for their upper end investors and where we think the future is going to be and why we're the prognosticators you should trust are all about major investments in technology over the next 10 to 15 years and the exponential growth that will come from them. They're given these like sideline TEDx talks, which is what these things are, Global X. They're given these little talks and put your money with us, dump it where we tell you to go. And at the same time, to the retail investor, telling them that the sky is falling to drive them out of those stocks, hopefully, and into the waiting arms of the old standbys. So they can, buy stock in, Nabisco or, the Coca-Cola company or whatever. And, sit and bake. Yeah. We need to be mining asteroid 4660 Nereus. I know, it's the nearest that we can expect it to be for thousands of years. I'm sorry. It's so bad.
Are we supposed to be looking out for like an Armageddon thing?
Yeah. All told, prices, here you go. Low inflation in the 2010s was built on a foundation of steady deflation in durable goods prices. But that was then durable goods, which represent 12% of consumer spending, accounted for 20% and 24% of the inflation over the past 12 months. Well, durable goods are exactly what they sound like. They're heavy. They require shipping. People will pay more to get them quicker when they are delayed, especially if your business requires them to run, as opposed to a consumer. If you need a truck because you need to make deliveries versus you need a truck because you're Ted Cruz and you have your idea of macho is driving a giant pickup that you never put anything in the back of except your fat ass while you're yapping out of the back of it and talking to America with one bale of hay in it, like that you found or bought for $6 on your way to the rally, whatever that is, and you drive it to the mall. You know how many F-150s are driven like Priuses in Texas?
Oh, yeah.
Houston's full of them. Yeah.
Prii.
Prii, is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, the plural. Shelter is by far the biggest part of services spending. Listen to them. Fucking hell. Accounting for about 1/3 of the consumer budget. Yeah. Rent, mortgage. A lot of people are moving and are paying more because they want to. and they're fighting for the good spots and where the good internet is. That's really what's happening too. A bunch of people
60
moved.
seconds, guys.
Yeah, a bunch of people moved to crappier, like a smaller apartment or in a better area because of fiber optic. And that drove the price up of a crappy apartment. All over LA, that's there's certain weird areas where they put in Google, fiber or whatever. Chip, what are you doing, man?
Helping.
He's trying to get something under the door, so he's doing one of these
Oh, it's the best.
yeah. Blurring boundaries. Whether working, shopping, or gaming, why physical is now digital. Start your experience with Wall Street Journal and Global X. Dude.
10 seconds.
Can I? Okay. Can I? Yes, I'm in a commercial break. Just a few.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Us faithful pimstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
So, now, when you buy real estate, we were talking during the break about durable goods. One of the things they see in the market, oh my gosh, durable goods, which need to be physically carried, and therefore energy prices will affect them over time. That's the trickle down of the fact that oil companies are trying to make up for missed profits, right? And they are bringing those profits, in by compensating for the losses they had when no one was driving last year. Now, what do you think, Johnny Million? The biggest, and you have to understand, listen, we're talking about durable goods. We're talking about the real cost of stuff, and the idea that if you listen to the economic news in terms of inflation on any of the major financial networks, they're going to talk to you about the house prices, man. Housing prices are up. Where do you think they're up the highest in the known universe, in the unknown universe, Marty?
Housing prices?
Yeah, the cost of real estate. Where is it the most expensive right now? From considering what it was worth, like the inflation price that jacked up from it was this price and now it's through the roof.
I want to say Texas.
And people in the chat room can tell me too. They're saying big cities. They're saying California. Somebody said Detroit. What do you think?
I say Texas.
No.
Oh.
The most expensive real estate and the biggest inflationary jump is in digital real estate.
The hell is that?
A plot of digital land in the metaverse, the new Facebook-driven meta universe that people will get through via virtual reality and the merging of those things. A piece of prime real estate. Now it was, sold in these, in sort of Bitcoin-y online tokens, which will have a material, transfer rate. Sold for the equivalent of $2.5 million a couple weeks ago. 618,000 mana, which is a type of cryptocurrency used in what's called Decentraland. It's online. Now, how much was the cost of that land a year ago, 2 years ago? That's a trick question. It didn't exist. It doesn't exist.
I was
It does not exist. It's not going to exist anywhere. It still doesn't exist, technically. It's just dibs. It's the equivalent, the closest equivalent is buying advertising space on a website that has a lot of traffic, knowing that certain amounts of traffic will go through certain places. Like Facebook sells ads on their stuff, or like your favorite news website that, on their front page sells ads or pop-ups that are more expensive than the ones deep inside attached to articles. $2.5 million for something that exists only in the digital realm and could be accidentally erased if someone spills coffee on a server is amazing. And that, I mean, if you're going to talk about inflation, I don't know why they don't bring that one up. Why are you not bringing that up? What, I mean, that's a 2.5 million %. It's more than that because it was zero. It's you know. And yet, there will be businesses that will thrive only because they have a stake in the digital world that is effectively like private property that you will have to go through if you go through this tunnel to get to any of these destinations that become very popular in the metaverse. I myself, after my live stream yesterday, started building my own world in Meta, in the Horizons thing, as a gathering spot. Thanks. It's a little, it's a little blocky right now. I need some good texture maps eventually. It's a little, it's Christmassy, I will say that. But in kind of dealing with this storyline and talking to some folks about this kind of stuff and the future of our world as digital mixed together with other stuff, I have always tried to be sort of as much ahead of the curve as I possibly can. It's, I dig your well before you're thirsty, as they say. And more of an exploration of what that actually means. And that there are, in the Minecraft world, for example, there's been entire sub-industries of people who just do nothing but make Minecraft worlds that cost money to go play in. Right? That's where this came from. Meta did not come up with this. Facebook, Zuckerberg did not come up with this financial idea on their own. It was born out of Minecraft. My kid plays Minecraft. My girlfriend's son played Minecraft back in the day. They've been at it for a very long time. And because of them, I know more than I need to know about modding Minecraft, because you had to do it by code in the old days. You couldn't just download packs.
So kudos.
It's it's basically like a 8-bit style gaming environment where you build out of blocks, but people have used those blocks to make incredibly complex, universes with giant buildings and temples and waterfalls and villages and all this kind of stuff. And you go and you basically hang around there, and you can buy your way in. Some are free, blah, blah, blah. Not overall the point, but that was an industry that did not exist. Sure. Was impossible, and requires no external labor or the work of another human being. As long as you want to sit there all day long on your own in front of your computer, tapping away. Roblox is another one. Roblox has become a huge industry on its own. The characters look like Legos a little bit. They look like Lego head people, and you can make your own games within it. It became an area where young programmers start experimenting, creating their own games, and then they became meme games, and then they became copycat games where they'll make a rip-off blocky version of Call of Duty, a rip-off blocky version of almost all the games are tag in some form or another. My son enjoys a game that looks like a bunch of kids being chased by the It clown in a McDonald's.
Oh my.
And the guy who made that paid for his car with it. And it's a nice car. These are in some cases really rich dudes. There is no slave labor in that. There is no lack of paying programmers overseas to kind of pick up your slack for you and then sell it to, at a profit. It's all you. It's on you. Something in a way that unless you own material land 1,500 years ago, you have no grasp at the open frontier that exists financially as far as your well-being. It's just, in a lot of ways, it is unfathomable to a lot of the folks that talk about economics these days. And anybody who's got kids who play Roblox or Minecraft or watch, famous YouTubers who game or even play any of the games and look at how much Call of Duty as a game, for example, costs versus how much money people spend buying outfits for their characters over time, right? Outfits that do not exist.
That's a thing.
Oh yeah, it's beyond a thing. It's in many ways the financial basis of the game. It's how the game makes money. The sales of it is incidental. And we are looking increasingly down the barrel of a huge amount of our entertainment, pastime, and travel experiences being either virtual or augmented. And this is an area where the economy is presented with a new gold mine, a gold mine that only exists between the ears of human beings. Because it's up to you. If you can think it up and make it up, you can do it. You don't have to buy the land in a lot of ways from anybody right now. Even the people who bought this $2.5 million stretch of land, they're going to get outpaced by somebody who creates a digital tunnel that bypasses all of it. That they'll charge you a nickel, but at least you don't have to look at all these ads, right?
Right.
And to a lot of people, that'll be worth it. And it won't be a nickel. It'll be 5 mega coins or whatever. And you'll get them for free from other people, so you'll just use those as pathways, just like all these situations happen. And so you've got a lot of folks who are looking at the U.S. economy, for example, infrastructure. How can we afford to spend we're printing all this money that we're going to spend on infrastructure? The physical stuff you can't bypass. You can't just dream up. You can't just sit in front of a laptop and create this stuff. People have to go out there and physically do it. We do not have an army of robots that will take care of this stuff. We're gonna get used to that idea in about 20 years, that almost all physical labor will be eradicated. Then what? That's the conversation. Idle hands being the devil's workshop, and understand that most of the Karens we've seen have a lot of expendable income. They have a lot of disposable income. You got to have some disposable income just to cover your van in that many stickers and still have money left over for pipe bombs. So there is a fascinating aspect to this. The woman I was mentioning earlier, who's got the ARK investing woman or whatever, and they're kind of dunking on her right now because her long-term investments are in AI, robotics, and that kind of, and VR and AR stuff, which is going to pay off. It's just coming. Get used to the idea. Don't even pretend it's not. Just know it's coming, and rest, just like cell phones and smartphones. Just be aware. Look at it with like some people looked at Kirk's telecommunicator and go, that's just crazy. And you'll be left behind. We now look at all the things in old sci-fi and go, oh yeah, most stuff that we see in sci-fi is going to make it at some point. We're not in a huge hurry, but it's going to get here. Jetpacks are terrible, by the way. Stop it. They burn your feet. It's silly. What you want is anti-grav boots, and that's down the pike a ways. But that ends all friction, and therefore transportation gets a lot cheaper. So anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that you have entire industries that they're projecting somewhere in the next 10, some are even saying by 2024. I think that's a bit of a reach. It might be 2026 or 7. $100 trillion in new wealth and new avenues of making wealth. $100 trillion in these industries in the next 7 years. Much of it seated, by the way, in the United States and our partners like Japan and South Korea and Germany, England, places that have really the Finnish countries and the Danish countries and where all the Swedes hang out, where it gets cold and they have a lot of time to spend indoors coding because it's freezing outside. All of those areas, you're going to see enormous wealth created in not just in virtual worlds and stuff, but in how AI affects medicine, how AI affects production, all those kind of things. It's going to be a huge leap forward in that, with $100 trillion in revenue generated in the next, they're saying 5 years, I'm saying 7 to 8, but because of the exponential nature of AI, it could happen in an afternoon. That's the crazy part. I have the equation for that. If you ever want to hear it, just ask me. But the important thing though is that money will not all be, spent in the digital world. It'll be, making people better, more physically fit, therefore able to travel, therefore needing roads and bridges and trains and cars and better fuel sources and better environments for tourism to go see. No one wants to go see something that used to be scenic and now looks awful. And honestly, the Republicans want to tell you that spending $1.7 trillion on infrastructure in the United States of America is going to break the country? Because if a tenth of these predictions are true, a tenth of them, our material economy doubles in 8 years. From $24 trillion a year to somewhere in the order of $45 trillion in the U.S. economy in the next 8 years. We doubled since 2000, and that time will double. It took us 20 years to double. It'll take us 10 years to double again. I went way over the break. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this short segment next. But don't forget to like and subscribe. Give a thumbs up. I know this is a conversation most people don't hear about this kind of thing, but I always find it masked underneath it. And I was driven towards talking about this by an ad that the Wall Street Journal is selling on the very same Market Watch article that we were talking about before the break. We'll be back. How does economy pay for the national debt? Through taxes, and you pay the interest on it, and then eventually you pay down the principal is the idea. And the only reason we don't pay down the principal as quickly is because we've been funding Social Security with the interest. Social Security Trust Fund technically makes money as long as we continue to pay our debts as a country, because it is the primary holder of our debts, where we're drawing from. We draw most of our debt from beyond like long-term bond issues. We do a lot of it from the Social Security Trust Fund. That's why Al Gore was talking about a lockbox. Inflation news isn't universally bad. Several items that people used to worry a lot about in the past have been rather tame recently. Healthcare, for instance, was a major preoccupation in the decade before Obamacare was enacted in 2010. Oh, weird. But over the past year, despite a terrible health emergency, medical care prices are up just 1.7%. Prescription drug prices are down 0.3% year over year. Burp. God. Health insurance prices are down 3.8% due to increased government subsidies, because everybody's getting a break and more people are recognizing that Obamacare is actually financially viable for them, is a better buy-in than some smaller businesses. College tuition is up 1.9% in the past year. Thank you. And by the way, partly because they have more students, because almost all the big universities now have a big digital arm. So they don't have to worry about housing and insurance and all the stuff that when you go live on campus. You can do the digital version of Harvard, as well as, almost as well, except for the networking, as well as you can do the in-person, if not better.
Hal Sparks!
What a joke.
So stupid.
And boring as hell.
You know what we should do? We should
listen to Hal Sparks.
Just as a goof.
Right.
That'd be hilarious.
I love Hal Sparks.
Oh my God, he's the best! I have everything he's ever recorded! Me too!
This is Doris Davenport, host of The Doris Davenport Show. All local, all the time. Now let's get back to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
All right.
We've got entirely too many troublemakers here.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to have to start cutting my own,
Apparently,
Hail to the king,
decisions were made.
Yeah, right. I mean, there was a total lack of...
I'm dead sexy.
In there. You know what I mean? Like, I almost clicked on one that I can't do on the air. I have several of those. Devin does those if you don't understand and they're a little choppy for you. That's...
It's not Irish. It's not English.
How are you? Fair, what is my kindness for the horses, you know?
It's just pikey.
Anyways, so we were talking about during the break, where this, the inflation they're talking about, energy prices, cost of houses, cost of gas, which if you're really rich and drive a giant gas guzzling car and you were thinking about, you're recognizing that rents are going up in certain areas and you'd like to buy another property, but the profit margin on buying that property has gone down because the house, people recognize that you're looking to buy it to turn it into a revenue stream instead of live there. And by the way, the cash specifically from Russia and China has started to dry up. That's a huge part of why there's less, you're not fighting for cash buyers in some of these cases. And if you are, they're North Americans or South Americans, but they're from this section of the world. So there's a part in this Market Watch thing buried way, way down in the bottom of the article where inflation isn't. The inflation news isn't universally bad. Several items that people used to worry about a lot in the past have been rather tame recently.
Oh, goodness.
Healthcare, for instance, was a major preoccupation in the decade before Obamacare was enacted in 2010. But over the past year, despite a terrible health emergency, medical prices are up just 1.7%. Prescription drug prices are down 0.3%.
That's crazy.
And health insurance prices are down 3.8% due to increased, wait for it, government subsidies. Now that for all of you socialist communists, it's communist socialism. They're communist socialism. This is standard democratic taxation. We recognize that you can pay, you can subsidize people getting health insurance, or you can pay later in lost revenue because those people are dead, or the destruction that cascades through communities and cities and the like. When people who can't afford health insurance get a contagious disease and pass it on, which we've recognized. We all it's not communism to recognize that diseases are contagious, some of them. Although, apparently Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks that cancer is airborne.
No.
But I think she just overheard someone behind her on a plane talking about her. College tuition, which rose at 6.7 annual rate in the 2000s and 3.4% in the 2010s, is up just 1.9% in the past year. Now, why would that be? One of the reasons is it's now available to a lot more people because of digital online learning. And the $1.9 trillion rescue package and the new infrastructure bill is going to expand broadband, and the price of a university education for citizens in the United States, especially with good internet, no matter where you are in the country. That's right, red staters. It's time for your kids to get a degree in poetry and underwater basket weaving, and then they're going to have to find a CVS nearby and to dye their hair blue and have their one-person woman's march in their pink sewn hat. In the middle of some little town in Wyoming. It's coming your way. Every storm has a cloud as a silver lining, I suppose. So they says, but the storms are still gathering. Rex Nutting is the guy's name, is a Market Watch columnist who's covered economics for more than 25 years, which is one of the reasons why he knows the game. He knows that the game is you have to if you're talking about inflation and you want people to keep it in the news, you gotta, oh dear God, you have to, I just clicked on a graph that came up in 82 where inflation was up 14% by this measure.
Dang.
In the consumer price index. compared to 6.8%, which, by the way, if you mark, besides the 2008 drop-off, is up about maybe 2% on the CPI since 2008. Because it dropped down because the government, by the way, started paying for a lot of stuff, driving down prices on purpose to help the economy recover. And the minute they stop, by the way, prices will go back, it'll cost more money out of your pocket, and there you go. So prices are rising, and this is, look at the title of this, the title of the article, Consumer Prices Rose at Fastest Pace Since 1982, Pressuring Washington. This is New York Times. Talking about the CPI. Gianna Smilek. Prices are rising at the fastest clip in nearly 40 years. Which, of course, 40 years ago, according to this, it rose 14%, more than double what it rose. And hey, no pandemic, no worldwide shutdown. All right, just U.S. isolated. And by the way, for the record, that's a percentage change over, and it was just spiking and vacillating. And, as it will create chaos and then seek equilibrium, and then create chaos and then seek equilibrium, which is how most economic patterns play out. Don't get me started on 4.669 as a multiplier. Prices are rising at the fastest clip in nearly 40 years. Fresh data released on Friday showed us supply chain disruptions, rapid consumer demand. See, I thought consumer confidence was terrible. How can you have consumer demand and low confidence, other than the fact that they're not confident they'll be able to buy stuff for cheap because there's a lot of other people with money who didn't used to have money who can now afford some of the middle zone Target items, right? The stuff that's the bottom of the top or the top of the bottom where most of us live. Right? Where the vast majority of American consumers find themselves financially, the top of the bottom or the bottom of the top. And rising housing costs, and again, housing costs, this is not a rent jack up that happened during this time. This is talking about housing prices, buying a new house or buying an older house in a better neighborhood. Fuel inflationary bursts. People don't buy houses every year. So the idea that somehow this is the consumer price index and it includes housing is always weird. And the only reason it is because of the house flipping. And if you want a single reason why we had a 2008 crash, I blame Armando Manalongo.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Tell me about Armando.
We can't. I got to take a break. I wrote into this break. We'll take a short break and then we'll come back and I'll tell you why I blame 2008 on Armando Manalongo. You remember that name? You remember that name at all? We'll be back.
No, I don't at all.
Somebody does in the chat room, I'm sure. You can't say it. Don't say it 3 times into a mirror. It's a bad idea.
No.
Or all the tile in your house will look like it was bought off the shelf in swaths from Home Depot and applied swiftly. Oh, God. That's the way they play with these numbers, man. It just makes me, come on. Stop. Come on. By the way, I've got my Gene Simmons, but in back knot form today,
Oh, yeah.
I got the half ponytail.
With 100%
it's been a while.
less
I haven't
wig.
done that in a long time. Yeah. Right. Paul has great hair, and it's both its natural state and his wig, because he does both. He's got the show outfit.
Yeah. I'm glad he puts gray hair in his wig. That's important.
Well, he used to have a blonde streak in his real hair back in the day,
Oh,
too.
sure. Like in 76.
Bleach it. Yeah. But he wears a big, kind of black mop on stage. And then his real hair, though, that he wears, that he has out about, just looks like really kind of cool, dignified, long hair for a dude in his early 70s or late 60s. Whatever he's like, because his window is, he's older than that, but his window is very low because he's a healthy dude. Bikes all the time, all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, just like ongoing that, like, it's always hard to tell who the healthiest rocker is because Mick Jagger, he and Keith Richards have just been swapping out their blood for decades.
Yeah.
Basically,
I don't know what Mick Jagger's like as far
recreational
as
dialysis. That's effectively what it is. Recreational dialysis. That's what they're doing. In its own, in its own way, like just having your oil changed. So, I feel like I'm just hanging on this topic all day, but it's a good conversation to have, and nobody else is having it. And everybody else who is having this conversation, thank you, is just they're just selling something. It's the biggest.
Yeah, they're just fearmongers.
Yeah, and it's aggravating me.
Yeah.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I thought there was going to be like a new one every break. I was so excited.
You want more, Hal? We'll give you more.
Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide, on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. Hoo-yah!
So I know I'm hammering this topic, but I feel like I'm the only person pushing back on the other side of this boulder. Because if you listen, if you watch any of the news, they'll tell you what I'm telling you in the articles, but they'll wait till paragraph 3 or paragraph 7 where they either know you've bailed out on the fear-mongering in the first 2 paragraphs, or they know that you're wealthy enough to see through the headline and you've got money to play with and a long-term investment strategy, so you'll read the rest of it and you'll weigh it against it. And you're one of the deep readers. So the deep readers it's like they save, especially in economic stories, they save the real news for people who will hang in there. You know what I mean? Like, hey, stick around, buddy. I'll tell you the real story. And that's, so we looked at that article from Market Watch in the first hour. And then this is from the New York Times. That bastion of liberal thought. Listen to how this is characterized and see if you can spot the forehead slap in this. Prices are rising at the fastest clip in nearly 40 years. Rising at the fastest clip in nearly 40 years. Are they more expensive based on mean wages or any of that in the last 40 years? No. Does it sound like they are from that sentence? Yeah. They're rising because they fell off a cliff last year. And nearly fresh data released on Friday showed as supply chain disruptions, rapid consumer demand, and rising housing costs fuel an inflationary burst. The spike in consumer costs could spell trouble for officials at the Federal Reserve and the White House, who are trying to calibrate policy at a moment when the labor market has yet to completely heal from the pandemic, but price increases are proving more persistent than policymakers had expected. Largely, that's out of news. You tell people things are more expensive, they're prepared to pay more for it. They don't haggle by not going. They just figure, everything's getting expensive. I better buy it quickly before it's gone. The empty shelves conversation mixed with the higher price is a psyop effectively from the financial markets and the sales industry. They both work. All right. The Consumer Price Index climbed 6.8% in the year through November. So year over year from last year, right? We sputtered. Remember, we had a big secondary wave of COVID right before the election, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was tanking. The fastest pace since 1982. Now, there was not a drop ahead of that was based on any kind of pandemic. Again, in 1982, that was economic policy, and it was still twice what we're seeing. And we've had other times when we've been close to this kind of a pace bump up, close, like the drop off in 2008. By the way, we're not hearing articles about how like stuff's so cheap all of a sudden when 2008 happens, right? Just everybody's breaking the world's okay. After stripping out food and fuel, which can move around a lot from month to month, this is the first person, by the way, to admit that fact, that these fluctuate based on seasonal usage, and that gas gets jacked up in the summer, especially when people are on vacation for the first time, and people are going like, all right, we're kind of out of this, and we've been vaccinated, let's go visit people, and they knew they had you, so they drove the prices up. And then when school came back,
what I thought happened.
And they were, right, there's been a slight tick up in that regard. And it's not all us, again, it's worldwide. Inflation climbed by, which can move around. Inflation climbed by 4.9% if you remove food and fuel, which are related in why they're costing more. That was the quickest annual reading since 1991. Again, there was no 1990 pandemic. There are economic factors worldwide that have to do with how we tailor our economy that affect us like this with some regularity. But acting like this is somehow miraculously evil or whatever is an attempt to manipulate the American consumer out of their hard-earned dollars, or in some case, their government-subsidized dollars, while they were waiting until they could go back and make some hard-earned dollars. Right. Monthly price increases, the change between October and November rather than over the past year, did moderate somewhat, but still rose at an unusually rapid pace. Now, that's because they were unusually low still in some of these industries. So 0.8% is a lot, but it was under the 1% they thought it was going to be. So it moderated, but rose at an unusually rapid pace. What they mean is they predicted it was going to be worse, and it was actually lower than they thought. The question is, what happens next? Fed officials have become increasingly concerned about inflation, both because they've been, by the way, they're not concerned about inflation. I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag. The Fed is not worried about inflation. They're worried about deflation next fall because there's a backup of goods, and China's going to be dumping goods on the market to try and get their, to re-seize their control of manufacturing in the world, which is going downhill at a rapid pace. And Evergrande, that company I was talking about for a while, defaulted this week officially on their foreign bondholders. There was a question, were they going to do it? They got a 30-day grace period. They did it. And you know how people found out they defaulted? Johnny, how do you think they found out? How do you think they normally find out?
I don't even know what a typical way to find out about that kind of thing is.
Well, typically, the financial regulators will get a heads up from the company, and they will inform the market while that company informs their bondholders in a call or a in-person gathering. That's usually how it works. The way people found out was that no one at Evergrande would answer their phone.
Oh, that's a good one.
The money did not show up in the accounts the way it was supposed to on the last day, and they just stopped answering their phones. Yeah. Evergrande has $300 billion worth of debt, and they just officially defaulted. 4 other companies are either in default or collapsing. Do you know how much China's high-speed rail debt is, Johnny Million?
Not 360 billion, I bet.
It's over $1 trillion.
Like moly.
We have been, I myself, I love the idea of high-speed rail, and I've been saying we should invest in it in our country. And by the way, if we want to, might want to talk to Taiwan. They have a fantastic system. Goes from Taipei through Tainan, Taichung to Tainan, all the way down the whole country. It's great. I've ridden on the train. It's beautiful. It's clean. They take great care of it, and it's been working and profitable for a very long time. We should hire those folks to make ours. I'm just saying. Bring over the Taiwanese, hire them to do it. Those companies know what they're doing. Not the Chinese companies that were looking at the bond issues that were coming from Vegas and Los Angeles and California and what. Okay. The Chinese high-speed rail industry is $1 trillion in debt.
Wow. Then
with
what, right?
Almost and 6 of the lines of the 10 major lines are not breaking even and are going into debt continually. And they are no longer maintaining the main lines with the consistency that they need to. They've also had, flooding and other stuff that's been a big part of this, and blackouts. And when you have a high-speed rail system, it's electric, and you need big electric plants to run the whole thing. $1 trillion. It's about to default as well. They'll probably hide that because it's semi-nationalized through 3 other things, and they can do a lot of shuffling, but each province is responsible for the debt that's been accrued by the lines in their territories. And it's $1 trillion.
That's unreal.
Of useless debt. It's not, we're not talking about the U.S. highway system that, over time cost about that much to put together and pays for itself thousands of times over in productivity and other stuff every year. There are 6 dead train lines for all practical purpose with, trains that are a quarter mile long practically in some cases with 15 people on them. That's on top of the Evergrande situation. Just to factor that in. The Fed is not, China's going to need every dime it can get, and it's going to do it by dumping, it's going to lower its labor costs and dump cheap goods onto the market hand over fist for the next 3 years, which is going to undercut the cost of almost everything we buy, as far as electronics and other stuff, because that's what they're going to have to do to remain even just moving as an economy. Growth in the Chinese economy shrunk below population growth, which is already projected at a smaller number than it actually is. Ugh. I mean, it's bad. It's really bad. Every piece of news I see out of China economically right now, it just gets worse every second. China, for those of you that are wondering about how much debt China owns of ours, they own about 8% of our foreign debt. And they've been increasingly shedding it over the last 5 years. That's a whole other conversation about the economic story you've been told about American debt. Again, we hold most of our own debt in the United States. And then like pension funds and other folks buying bond issues of U.S. bonds over time. We owe pension funds and we owe the Social Security safety net. That's where all the money's being borrowed from when we use it. And we pay interest on it, and that's what keeps them functioning year to year. So that's why they go, Social Security checks won't go out if we don't increase the debt limit. That's what they're talking about because that's who we're paying. All right. It just keeps, it's a simple oversimplification, but that's how it works. It just keeps the pressure on Fed officials. Fed officials have become increasingly concerned about inflation, both because the uptick has lasted longer than expected and because it shows signs of broadening to areas less affected by the pandemic, ramping up the risk that rapid gains could become entrenched. By the way, that's from wage growth. That's what they're talking about. People with more money can pay more money for stuff. And Wall Street hates that. So they're always going to be mad. They're always going to be mad that you're making more money because their profit margin goes down. And if they raise the price, you're going to, it's why the same thing that costs $20 in America costs $20 in Canada, Canadian, even though the monetary exchange is different. And even though the labor and costs fluctuate back and forth between who makes it, because the consumer thinks that's worth $20 to me. $20 means psychologically the same thing to a Canadian as it does to an American, no matter how much the variance. Even when it's stark, even when it's half the price. When the Canadian loonie was 56 US cents. Earlier this year, price increases were concentrated in goods. Used cars and couches were in demand as the pandemic changed people's lifestyles. Factories around the world struggled to keep up with the surge in buying, in part because shutdowns tied the virus to the virus upended production. Shipping routes and ports also became clogged as demand followed an atypical pattern, and that's where it falls. Atypical pattern. You consumers, and you're finally having money and being able to make your own decisions, are driving certain people who were counting on you getting broke and staying that way, who were big Trump supporters economically, who know that you can live a little piece of the poor pie is way easier to get through fear, intimidation, and manipulation than trying to talk rich people out of a small price of a piece of what they got. With too many U.S.-bound goods trying to leave Asia in particular, supply came up short, prices leapt higher. And by the way, this is a problem that was born 20 years ago. Those disruptions were expected to be temporary. Instead, they've lasted for months. Inflationary pressures are also broadening to areas that are not as directly affected by it. Rental costs, for instance, have picked up sharply as rocketing home prices locked would-be buyers out of the market. That's also not true. People moved to be closer to better internet. The broadband aspect of the bill will change all that. It won't matter where you live. But it does right now. Housing, we moved during the pandemic, and Summer and I did, and one of the reasons we picked this area for our house was because of fiber optic, and because I'm now doing this live streaming all the time, and I need it. Without it, it was terrible. We were always ice skating uphill. Also, housing costs make up a big chunk. Jennifer Callahan, a mother of two in the Denver area, has been renting a 3-bedroom house since her previous home burned down in early 2021. We'll just leave that there. But local rents are jumping, and she worries that she won't be able to find a comparable place for anything like the $2,400 she and her housemate are paying if their lease isn't renewed. Homes in this area are selling for crazy, crazy amounts of money. It totally then screws up the rental market. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. The House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Rapid consumer demand is among the factors fueling the strongest inflationary burst in a generation.
Imagine.
People with money in their pockets, how dare they, how dare they, dare they. Thanks, Christina. I try. And Rob, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the internet in your area, Rob Glenn? I caught the bottom part of that conversation.
Back in a sec.
Do what you got to do. We'll stare at your robot who's doing the real work behind you. How much is due to the Trump White House not paying bills and illegal activity? As far as economic stuff, you dropped an egg. Oh no, dear God. Hold on.
5 eggs in a month.
Oh no.
5 eggs.
There you go. I've got to move this guy. I'm running out of real estate on my screen. Excuse me.
Coming back in 10.
Thanks.
Happy ending or no?
No. Let's see. Yeah, I do have one, but we'll continue talking about this. Yeah.
Attention, attention, stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh my God! They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
The one reason that you see them using the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, on a lot of these things is because if they use the standard of living one, it creates a bunch of grumbles. Lefties and righties tend to grumble a lot about the standard of living aspect of things because they have to recognize that even low-income Americans have seen a steady, if not shocking, incline in the available goods to them since, especially since the mid-90s, largely due to, technological improvements. Many people may know I still have it, my original Macintosh.
That's so neat.
The 128K Mac that I have. and it has a keyboard and a mouse, and the mouse has like an old-fashioned like screw-in computer plug on it, and the keyboard uses a telephone cable to go to the thing, and it has no hard drive, and it could hold 128K in its RAM, and you had to load every program you had on a disk, and it would run off the disk while using that 128K, just as just to not forget exactly what you're doing, right? And it had like a little missile game. You and I played it at the house a couple of times. Remember that? Where that like you'd fire on these things and these guys would be approaching the hillside, and if they managed to make it, they could climb up and get you, and you'd kind of, it was like a targeting game using early physics.
Missile command.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And but like amazing at the time. But that computer, and I grew up around computers because my next door neighbor was the chairman of the school board, and Apple was handing out computers at one point, and they were trying to get schools to use computers and get them in there. So they gave my next door neighbor out in the country, out in Peaks Mill, an Apple IIe, I think it was, or whatever. It was had a separate monitor and base and all this stuff, and you would load programs using a cassette recorder. And that computer at that time cost about $5,000. My dad splurged when we were in Chicago because he had to do some architectural work, and his company would split the cost for it to get him a computer at home. And he got this early Mac, because that's what they were using at the architectural firm, it was $3,000. The printer, which was a dot matrix printer, was $1,200.
Good Lord.
And not in 2021 dollars. Back when the dollar was worth even more. So by comparison, we're talking about spending somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000 for a computer that can't hold two programs in memory at once.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons, whether or not people make use of what's available to them is a bigger and bigger part of this conversation. But no one isn't aware of the idea that the phone you've got in your pocket has more computing power than all the computers that ran the Apollo mission, right? We've heard that one forever. It goes even further than that. I mean, they have more computing power than our nuclear capability in the 70s. As a country, in just your phone, just the calculation ability of that. The fact that there are apps where you can translate by voice right now. And insanity. I mean, things that are like James Bond level stuff, even in the cheapest phones. Yeah, I had a Trash 80 as well, ran on cartridges. Remember those things? You'd shove those in there. Those had more games to them. They were trying to get those in there with families because the typing program and the game cartridges looked kind of similar. And of course, we're just equally as susceptible to cat fur. You had to go blow them out. Remember that? Just like ColecoVision and Atari cartridges. So the average person in the United States, even by going to a library for free, has access to more computing power whenever they want to use it. I suppose, maybe not in the middle of the night, than any human being with less than with higher than a Harvard degree since 1961. I mean, anyone. And Biden brought up this point this week that in this day and age, it is shameful that impoverished kids and their families have to go and park outside a fast food restaurant to use the Wi-Fi because the internet where they live is so terrible. And we should fix that. And even still, they can park outside a fast food restaurant and use Wi-Fi. We've all done it. You can get power from them to power, like what's available to the American consumer. And you compare that to the story of what's going on in Ethiopia and Kenya right now, when you look at the fact that they're still using slave labor in the Uyghur areas in Xinjiang, the recognition that our standard of living in the United States, even when it's bad, is great overall. And that inflation is driven, again, largely by this, and they keep saying is driven by this increased consumer demand for finer and finer goods. Rapid consumer demand is among the factors fueling the strongest inflationary burst in a generation. I want to leave that in your head for the next week as you listen to these inflation stories you're being told. And go, if you were in business and everybody was saying people are buying stuff and it's very expensive right now and you can get a great price for your products right now because the price is going up, what would you do? You'd increase production. What happens when you increase production? More available supply. What happens when everybody thinks that way? Right. Think about that 6 months to a year from now. The panic, whatever the public herd mentality is doing, financial markets will go the opposite direction because they know everyone overreacts. That's the end of the show today. We blazed through this and ended up being one topic, but I just we needed to cover this, and I need people to consider this in their thinking. You don't have to think everything I'm saying is right by any measure, but this should be part of your thinking every time you see these stories. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. We're here every Saturday, and we're glad to help you brighten your day and take that cinder block off your chest that the news keeps wanting to put there. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Johnny Million. Much love. Sparks. Thank you, chat room, everybody. And thank you, Devin, even though I know you hate my show and my heart is broken.
Apparently.
Ouch. This is terrible. I don't know why.
Poor Devin.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Cheers, fellas. I'll see you next week.
Okay. All right.
care.
Bye. Okay. And you, sir, thank you so much. Much love to you. You,
sir.
I'm going to be doing the hug rounds, like I said, around New Year's. I've got to do a loop through Kentucky.
Looking forward to
it. So we'll have a late Christmas, you and I. What do you think? And
I love it. Please.
A little bite to eat, something like that. All right, awesome. All right, I'll let you go. I'm going to sign you off on screen. Send it just to me.
Okay.
And bye-bye, John Amelia.
Bye.
And then chat room, it's just us. I think we're alone now. I guess it's, I get all this stuff about, hold on, let me try and bring this thing up. I like this conversation just aggravates me. This nonsense. Hi, everybody. And chat room, I didn't get to talk to you as much today because I was trying to, it's my first time using that screen that Johnny was in with me so that we can look at some of these stories over time and be able to show them to you. Sometimes, when Johnny's on and I read an article or talk about it, I can't put it up on the screen. So that's what I've been trying to find a better remedy for. And I created one, and then that little cable thing happened with the cat running around, and I wasn't able to tweak all the little parts of it that make it work. So I was kind of, you know me. I'm always having to do something. You know what I'm saying? I'm always ice skating uphill. But so much of this. This is pal talking. Generally, the high prices we're seeing are related to the supply and demand imbalances that can be traced directly back to the pandemic and the reopening economy, but it's also the case that price increases have spread much more broadly in recent few months because there's money to be made. And it's not just in the United States. And foreign sellers know that we've got money. So they're trying to get our money as quickly as possible. I think the risk of higher inflation has increased, he said, during that. Okay, well, because we know it's going to go up for a while. The problem is it going to crater and go and turn into deflation? We won't have stagflation because we've got wages increasing. There's also sort of a Moore's law aspect of the financial part of this as well. That here you go. Fastest is, what do we know about inflation? And this is their little cheat sheet of dipshittery. Fastest inflation in decades. Only one driven by it was preceded by a pandemic, though, for the record. Other times it's been worse. Consumer Price Index, a measure of the average change over time in prices. Change over time. The 1 year thing. Just 1 year change. Not over time. No. You're not showing the rose 6.8% in November from a year earlier. You're only showing it there. Its sharpest increase since 1982, which was double. Why Washington is worried. Policymakers are starting to acknowledge price increases have been proving more persistent than expected. Who's blamed for rent? There are most obvious candidates. Here are the most obvious candidates. Here's where the evidence looks strongest. Experts say most agree the spike in prices is linked to the economic recovery. When it will fade and by how much are less clear. The psychology of it. Oh, there it is, right down at the bottom. Look at this one. Look at this right here. Americans are flush with cash and jobs, but they also think the economy is awful. Now, why would they think that? Look at this article. The upshot. Psychological effects of inflation seem to have the upper hand. Prices can have more intense effect on mood than the benefit of higher wages. Americans are, by many measures, in better financial position than they've been in many years. They also, obviously, there's people who are, not feeling this, but we understand where they're coming from. They also believe the economy. They also believe the economy is in terrible shape. This is a great contradiction that underlies President Biden's poor approval ratings, recent Republican victories in state elections, and the touch-and-go negotiations over the Biden legislative agenda. It represents a fundamental challenge for economic policy, which has succeeded at lifting the wealth, incomes, and job prospects of millions of people, but has not made Americans in their own self-perception any better off. What does that mean? In their own self-perception. Does that? Yes, thank you for asking. My Squeegee, my folks are good. They're in Central Kentucky. It's been, the weather's crazy, but the tornado hit in Western Kentucky, which we have, down near Murray and that area, but I don't think it struck in there. Heart goes out to the people that are hit by it and people in Southern Illinois and other places. In how is economic news, just the sheer numbers and the telling of it, responsible for your own self-perception of your position? If not, thanks, Brad. If not specifically tailored to make you feel that way, right? That strike that anybody that someone would write that sentence and not answer that. Maybe she does in the later ones. Workers have seized the upper hand in the labor market. Oh dear God, obtaining the largest raises in decades and quitting their jobs at record rates. By the way, driving, besides the available cash part, since your employees are more expensive, small businesses are charging more for their stuff as well because their staff costs more money, and they have several of them. The unemployment rate is 4.6% and has been falling rapidly. I don't know why we aren't pearl clutching like crazy right now. Look at that. This is an article about the economic bad news. The unemployment is 4.6%. It's been falling around. Cumulatively, Americans are sitting on piles of cash. They have accumulated $2.3 trillion more in savings in the last 19 months than would have been expected during the pre-pandemic path. So, like on par. Almost all of it, by the way, 0.7, in case you're wondering. $700 billion is the expected savings arc. Yeah. The median household's checking account balance was 50% higher in July of this year than in 2019. Yet workers' assessment of the economy is scathing. In a Gallup poll in October, 68% of respondents said they thought economic conditions were getting worse. Where'd they get that idea? The share who thought things were getting better was lower than in April 2009 when the financial crisis was still underway. And it's not merely a partisan response to the Biden presidency. In the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Survey, Republicans rate current economic conditions worse than Democrats do, but both groups give ratings about as low as they did in the early 2010s when unemployment was much higher and Americans' finances were a wreck. Are we strictly now into the perception is reality world? The reasons seem to be tied to the psychology of inflation and the ways people assess their economic well-being, as well as the uneven effects that rising prices and shortages have on different families. It may well be shaped by the psychological scars of the pandemic, one manifestation of this being an era of exhaustion. Maybe people aren't perceiving reality as it is, but as how they've been told to perceive it, while we're reading an article that tells you that things aren't as bad as they seem, but the headline, remember the headline? Let's see. We were down here. Past this part. Details of what a person buys can have an outsized effect on how acutely he or she feels the pain of inflation. For someone who has no need to buy an automobile this year, steep inflation in cars and trucks has been a non-issue. About 13% of workers have a paycheck that is unchanged over the last year, according to data from the Atlanta Fed. Many retirees receive pensions that are not adjusted for inflation. And it is middle and high income earners whose pay gains were least likely to have kept up with inflation. Middle and high income. Now, do you see why I was talking about the Karens earlier who are all pissed off about this stuff? The average Fox viewer, that's who you're talking about. That's their demographic. Especially in their perception. They are more apt to be middle income or upper middle income, but perceive themselves as high income regardless of what they make. Look at those polls. That's fun. Over the 12 months that ended in September, those in the top quarter of earners experienced 2.7% gains in hourly earnings. That's because they're salaried, compared with 4.8% for the lowest quarter of earners. That's because the lowest quarter of earners, the wages changed were hourly wages. Dum-dum. These are also the people that had to be coaxed back to work because these are the people who interact with other human beings. This is the hospitality industry. Of course, it's double. For lower earners, that follows years leading up to the pandemic in which pay gains exceeded inflation rates. So it's not even caught up with that, by the way, but whatever. The details of what a person buys can have an outsized effect. Right, we saw that. There you go. Trucks, transporting cargo containers. Now consider someone whose car broke down and who needs another one to get to work. A rise in prices of 40% for used cars and trucks since the start of the pandemic amounts to a costly burden. Yeah, except they decided to buy in with the money they got from the government as far as stimulus when they didn't have to spend it on other stuff. Same applies to other physical goods, like home appliances. Staple goods, gasoline prices are visible on big signs in every street corner and have risen 74% from their pandemic lows of May 2020. But they are below their levels for most of 2011 and 2014, and average earnings have risen sharply since that period. To look at it one way, in October, it took about 6 minutes of work at the average private sector wage to earn enough to buy 1 gallon of regular gasoline. In October 2013, it took 9 minutes of work. For fuck's sake, that is like... Is this not what I was talking about? Is this not... Guys, I don't work in the economic world. I don't work for the New York Times. I'm not their economics writer. But have I not been pointing this very thing out when it comes to talk about just gas prices alone, much less the rest of this shit? Who told you this first? Honest to God, where else besides the 14th friggin' paragraph have you heard any of this shit? There are some days when I'm just abundantly aware that I do my little show in the corner of the internet and that I am pissing into a hurricane when it comes to bringing these kind of facts out. I appreciate you guys too. Thank you, Josh. But for fuck's sake, look at that. I would lead with this. Also, why are they taking polls without telling people this or showing them that graph, like I said? And then they're like, oh, we don't understand. People's perception. Why would they? Why would people not recognize such a thing when they, why would you not present them with those kind of facts when you're asking them about their emotional feeling about a percentage rise in pricing? What do you think the polling would be like if somebody started off going, gas prices are down from 2011 to 2014 in a measurable way, and they are not expected to rise above those numbers, even with increased demand and the like? How do you feel about gas prices right now? And are you making more money now than you made in 2011? For fuck's sake, seriously. How in the world? I feel like Greta Thunberg. How dare you? Here you go. Price. Look at this. And by the way, it's an aggregate number. So they take all these numbers and they squash them together to tell you what the mid number is. This is what the CPI is, right? Look at this fucking thing. Used cars plus 40%. And let's see, what's this graph? There you go. Gasoline. Okay, so this is gas prices. This is gas prices. Look at this shit. So gas prices were down. And again, the baseline, there is no zero, really, because you're percentaging it based on where it was always. Because we're not. Here you go. 20. Let's see. Prices on Americans' perception of the economy can depend on some prices that are rising faster than hourly wages. Below, changes in prices since February 2020. Since February 2020. Here's February. Bad news. Oh shit. And here, by the way, here's January 2021. And this is January right here. When shit started opening for real. Here's like, oh, we're opening. Maybe not. Are we opening? It's like, are we? Here's Trump. This is where Trump's like flat out because nobody's going anywhere. Bubble's going to start. And then Biden comes in and it's like, oh, okay, we're going to be fine. Okay, everybody back driving, get in your car, go someplace, do some shit. Look at this compared to this. This is even, if you erase this drop and put this here, you don't even have a rise in gas prices. It's basically the same. Here's hourly earnings. They're tracking upward. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Here's the big spike in the beginning because they were having to pay people to come into work, and then what's this guy right here? Chicken. Of course it's chicken. Big spike in chicken is almost where it was. Look, and chicken, there was a dip in chicken. Why didn't you buy the dip in chicken? And then what kind of graphic is this, guys? What the shit? Make this smaller or something. There you go. Milk and bread. Humbada, humbada, humbada. Look, milk's on its way down, bread's on its way. Like, these all vacillate. Gasoline and food tend to change a lot over time. Yeah, same arc as always. But if you add this in, used cars and trucks, good fucking God. This is just 2-month moving averages are shown. Details away. Oh, for fuck's sake. To get a better idea of why elevated inflation can contribute to such negative assessments of the economy, it helps to go beyond the details of wage and price trends in 2021. Guys, don't look at whether or not you're making money or whether or not stuff costs more or less or whether it's going down or going. You got to look at a piece of economic research from the 90s conducted by Robert Shiller, a Yale economist. He led surveys to try and ascertain why inflation, even at moderate levels, frustrated ordinary citizens so much more than economic theory implied it should. He found that people did not believe they would receive adequate pay raises to keep up with rising prices. He also found that people believed it would hinder overall economic growth, that it would be harmful to national morale, and that it could fuel political chaos or damage national prestige. He found that they believed that. Is it true, though? In answering questions about what is really important and what our national leaders really ought to pay attention to, people may tend to rely on some deep intuition derived from life experiences. The idea that inflation can continue evokes arbitrary injustice, arbitrary redistributions, and social bitterness, and memories of social situations in which morale and a sense of cooperation were lost. Basically, it triggers people. That may be what makes inflation surge such a tricky policy problem. It can be about something more profound than dollars in people's pockets and the price of a gallon of gas. It might also be that those very same people, just like in the 90s, had just started experiencing the 24-hour news cycle. And the economic news about inflation that they got was non-fucking stop. And they were tying it, and how they talked about it, to the last inflation spikes as if it was a day ago. And so you're looking at the news like, oh my God, this is worse since 1989, which means it was a long time ago, so it was very bad. And that was bad, remember? And this must be bad like that was bad, even though that wasn't that bad. Was it that bad? I don't remember it being that bad. I must have been bad. It was a long time ago, and everything, the past sucks. We know this. All right. That may be what it can be. Okay. He's the author of, Neil Irwin is a senior economics correspondent for The Upshot. He's the author of How to Win in a Winner-Take-All World, a guide to navigating a career in the modern economy. Meanwhile, down at the bottom, here's the other 4 articles they want you to click on after you watch this, after you read this. Holy shit. Like, am I the only person? Like, all right, fine. There is shadow inflation taking place all around us. Guys, it's shadow inflation. Shadow inflation. The shadow knows. Margot Lane. The jobs numbers take the stag out of the stagflation scare. Maybe lead with that one next time. Wages are rising, but can they keep up with inflation? Oh, well, not if the inflation is based on public panic, which is caused by stories that assert that they can't, even though they are, because they won't, because they didn't, even though they are. And then down here, workers are gaining leverage over employers right before our eyes. And look at this smiling black lady. I mean, can you imagine anything more horrifying than this lovely lady having an easier time? October 10th, November 5th, June 5th, 2020. Okay, these are the artists. This is, I mean, you should kind of put them in reverse order, newest to oldest, but whatever. Okay. Americans are going back to work at a rapid clip. Bright Star. Oh my God. Bright Shining Star was the catchphrase they used on the last cruise ship I did when somebody died on the boat. Recruiters for a medical staffing company at a tailgate job fair in Leesburg, Virginia last month. The new jobs report showed strong growth over recent months. Oh God. The story of the American labor market is less murky than it seemed just a few weeks ago. The new jobs numbers Friday present a straightforward, sunny view. Despite it all, the virus variants, the reopening struggles, Americans going back to work at a rapid clip. Stagnant economies don't add 531,000 jobs in a month, and they don't exhibit a low, rapidly falling unemployment rate. 4.6 in October, down from 4.8 in September, 6.3 at the start of the year. But perhaps more important is what the new numbers tell us about the dynamics of the job market going back a couple months. I love this too. There was a slowdown in job creation. Yeah, because fewer people need fucking jobs, and some people don't have to work if their partner can make more money. Again, this used to be a goal. The number of new jobs was below expectations, but the report shows that the economy is on the right track. Look at this fucking thing. I mean, one could say, if you were going to have a paper called The Upshot, you would write, report shows the economy is on the right track, regardless of new jobs being below expectations. Besides, whose expectations? Go fuck yourself. Jobless claims plunge. Initial unemployment claims for the week, their lowest since 1969. September, my birth year, my birth month. All right, I feel like am I yes, I'm Walter Sobchak, that's right. Am I the only one who gives a fuck about the rules? Market zero! Okay, I feel like I've been harping on this thing for 2 hours straight, and I have. Can I show you some other cool stuff, though, that stuck out to me? Can I show you what I've been watching lately? Some of the cool stuff? Hold on. I have to find this. I'm going to have to go to library. Or no, history. That's what I want. History. See if I can get this. Yeah, I'll bring this up. I want to bring this up without pause. Hold on. Turn off the... yes, hi, hold on. China, this is from... Here you go. I'll open this up. Theater mode. There you go. This is a graphic from Weon, but I wanted to show you guys this. It's pretty funny. This was China's response. Remember how China's supposedly laughing about us, our diplomatic... excuse me. Beg your pardon, a diplomatic boycott of the Olympics, and that didn't mean anything. China's laughing at us. They're laughing at our weak response. Does this look like they're laughing right now? This is the spokesperson for the Foreign Ministry of China. Democracy has long become a weapon of mass destruction used by the U.S. to interfere in other countries. U.S. organized the summit and this is the Democracy Summit. Organized summit to draw lines of ideological prejudice, instrumentalize and weaponize democracy, and incite division and confrontation. You what now? Hold on. There you go. Hold on.
To be a moron. To be moronical. An imbecile. Like the dumbest motherfucker that ever lived.
Honestly. We're what now? We had democracies decided to have a meeting, and the U.S. decided to get us all together. And, I mean, I understand some things can be lost in translation. Democracy has long become a weapon of mass destruction used by the U.S. to interfere in other countries. What? First of all, do you think that, let's say, Halliburton, Dick Cheney, and George Bush and us getting into Iraq was us using democracy as a weapon of mass destruction? Or just straight up like a revenge scheme meets war for oil, under the cover of we were attacked? But the idea that democracy has become a weapon of mass destruction. Listen to that shit. Democracy has long become a weapon of mass destruction used by the U.S. to interfere in other countries. You know, if you would just let them keep slaughtering their own people, you wouldn't have to come in and slaughter some of them on behalf of some of them. Good God. And by the way, Maxwell, thank you for the super chat, by the way. I missed that a couple hours ago. And Hal Vickery, thank you so much as well. And Benny Loco, it's going to be all right. Swiss fudge cookie, those are lovely. The ones with the center out of them and the stripes, like the Keebler stripe ones. My grandmother always used to have those. They now taste like chocolate plastic, but democracy has long become a weapon of mass destruction used by the U.S. to interfere in other countries. No, you could say that democracy has been used as a guise for our interference or something like that. The idea of democracy using it, but that's not what we didn't use democracy to do it. We didn't hold a gun vote. Everybody. It's like it might be a loss of translation, but but beyond that, even if you believe that for a second. The U.S. organized the summit to draw lines of ideological prejudice. Yeah, we're prejudiced against dictatorships and authoritarians who want to keep themselves in power forever. Yes, we are. We have prejudged that as bad. We even have a document where we made that prejudgment a long fucking time ago. It's the Constitution. Yes. We've judged that as a non-starter. We're not going to turn to a monarchy or a dictatorship. We are prejudiced against those things. How did I got about a super chat today? PHK, thank you so much. Bless you. I was jabbering and didn't see it, and thank you for pointing it out to me. Hold on, there you are. I purposely eat foods high in sugars my body cannot digest, so they ferment strongly in my lower intestine. I am who I am, damn it, America, USA. Right. Just an ad for sugar. You bought an ad for sugar. I appreciate that. Mr. Davenport is so political, plus respect. It's just a thinking thing. You can do it too. I just love this quote. U.S. organized the summit to draw lines of ideological prejudice, instrumentalize and weaponize democracy and incite division and confrontation. We don't have a party so we can say we had a party you couldn't come to. We had a party for our friends and family. I don't judge my family based on who they're not. I just have family gatherings. And if you think, like, this asshole won't even let me be part of his family. Like, well, you kind of got to marry in or prove that you're in the family partly and then be a good member of the family. We don't just invite everybody. Chocolate wax. Yeah, that's right, Misty Q. Right. I just, like, this part has been sticking out to me for a while. That's the way that they are talking about this. Then the other thing is, let me see if I can find this as well, is the amount of crazy stuff I end up watching. You guys, it's just brutal. Oh, so this is part of the equation I was talking about. Like, let's see if I can find the stuff on it. Hold on. I don't want to show you the Mandelbrot set stuff. There's a graphic. Where the hell? I have to find this. Hold on. I'll have to look it up separately. Hold on. Yeah. I can't be the only person trying to work the Feigenbaum as in musical terms. No, I'm not a busy math teacher. Why do you think I'm a busy math teacher? Because of what I'm talking about. This is what happens when I talk about this stuff and my phone is on and can hear me talk. Yeah, the Feigenbaum constant, let me see if I can find it clear. Here we go. This is a better picture of it. 4.669, 2016, which probably means something to the Q folks. If you turn a Mandelbrot set on its side and twist it, it starts to look like that. And it's caused by an equation that tracks like mathematical, physical, environmental systems and stuff to a certain point where they start to taper out. And if they reach a certain point, they break off and they have two possibilities that they'll go because the answer will no longer sustain a single possibility. And then that happens and that happens and that happens. And then what happens is a single line over time breaks into two, and then those two breaks into these two, and in very short order, these two break into lots of twos. And yes, it looks kind of like a boob, but calm down. Here's that's the full one. It's more important than pi, I would argue. Oh, you bastard. This relates to chaos theory. Some people will point out, and it's right. I think they have it right here. There you go. Of course, chaos is built more. The cars are bumping around. Small imperfections, microscopic. That's chaos theory. The shorthand is moth. East in Beijing and Boston, you have rain instead of sunshine. Well, I did a flyby. This is the Feigenbaum number, though, is trackable to these crazy breakdowns in where single equations, once you start adding certain numbers to them, turn into these patterns. Then they stabilize bizarrely, and then they go back to this. And let me tell you something. There are AIs being built right now that are buying stocks based on this. How can I help you find an apartment? Where? That'd be the first question. Oh, thanks, Robert. I'm on. Robert, thank you for the 666. There are still at least 666 in the chat room, and there often are. Let's see. What's this? Okay. This stuff I find really fascinating because it goes into complex systems, and that's where you get the sort of the Moore's Law-ish equations about how you cannot predict. Okay, imagine this, okay? This is the telegraph. This is the messaging and telegraphs and the availability of wires and the expansion of the telegraph over time. And then the telegraph system eventually can carry enough information that it splits into the cables widely available enough where it could send telephone signals or data in terms of Morse code. This is, like I said, this is an oversimplification, but you get my point. And then in this data, there's thousands of ways that it can break down. Like, first of all, it's just, think of it as numbers and letters, and then numbers and combinations of letters, and like that. And then it gets out into, oh shit, all we did was text for about 5 years. Look how stupid, we all tweeted during this period. And then, okay, and then this is the voice stuff. Voice goes up here, and then voice reaches a capability and quality where video is capable on the same lines along with voice. And so half of them just do voice and half of them do video. And then at one point they just go, screw it, and video and voice overlaps. And then this is right around here is like Zoom happens, right? In all these mixes. And then it just expands and expands and expands and expands out until you have a tap in your brain and you're able to just talk to people. That is, you boiled 5 eggs today and laughed about it. Thought of, well, thank you. Anytime you make 5 boiled eggs, please think of me. That's all. I don't ask much and I don't ask often, but I think it's valuable. So the interesting thing to me is there is no way in systems to avoid this kind of expansion in anything that's complex or has the seeds of complexity baked in. And in that, right? Once you create a system that has the necessity of complexity, the possibility of it, and this would be like the universal creation, like stuff breaks off, particle hits particle, breaks up, and then planets with moons that sustain life, that kind of stuff. Like once you get into this. All of these break down the same way, no matter what you feed into them, and at whatever point, eventually, boop, it all looks the same. They bifurcate, and then in these bifurcations, they just create more and 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 more. It applies to everything. And then you can rotate the Mandelbrot. See this thing? Everybody's recognized that thing. You've seen some fractals in your life. The Mandelbrot set, oh, there it is, yeah. A single equation that rules the world. There it is. I think, is this a, let's see, a GIF? It should be a moving GIF. Move, you silly GIF. So yeah, so there it is. And then this is like a visual representation of the initial bifurcation of what possibility is. And then from that, you end up with that. Am I boring you guys with this weirdness? But this is what you have, like, this is coin money based on gold. And then this is, I don't want to carry my gold around. I want money, but I don't want you to be able to steal my gold. I want something that represents my gold without me having to walk around with it in a bag on my hip because I'm going to get killed. All right, well, let's try that. And then this happens. Monetary policy happens. And then for a long time, coins are made and stuff in single environments. Each country has its own financial coin. And then somebody trades. And then that trade leads to this trade. And then in a very short order, we have the modern complexity of our economic system. Totally unavailable, also totally mathematically predictable from the first time somebody used a coin. Your Visa card is right around here. It's actually, quite frankly, it's probably one of these, and it's probably right about there. So this is, you guys have seen the Mandelbrot set. It's well known. A lot of people had this as their desktop when you could first put desktops, your own desktop image, remember? Okay, oh, there it is. Yeah, there we go. So this is it rotating around. There it goes. So that equation I'm showing you is the Mandelbrot on its side completely. This is a nice Dutch angle on it. Let's see if there's a... But when you turn it sideways, what you see are the lines. This is this line coming up over the center in that primary bifurcation, creating a this is what, where's that? Where'd that guy? Oh yeah, these two guys right here. So you just see this, and then when you go three-dimensional, you see that it's this. And if you fill in this area, what you have is this area. Well, I guess the beginning of, yeah, there, this part. See it? And then these are all the rampant kind of like referentials if you have hardline numbers and stuff like that. It's really just cool. Yes, it feels inevitable because it is. It's how life forms. It's how information systems form. It's how psychology works a lot of times. It's not automatic. It's not, it doesn't, it eliminates free will. It factors free will in as part of it. And there's a great equation was this about the, this is about the temperature. So this, they put, this is pretty fascinating. They took mercury, put it in a block, and it had like two little turbines in it, or at least where it was positioned where the heat would be on the center. So there was like a heated rod under the box, square box, heaters right here. And the heat going up through it will kind of create a flow in the mercury like this, right? And then you can judge the temperature spikes by how fast they turn and the temperature gauge on the top of the thing. And so you get this initially, you heat it up and you get boop, boop, spikes in temperature. This dope, dope, dope. Then keep heating it up and you get this weird fluctuating one. It's not even. You would just think it would increase in speed evenly, but it doesn't. It kind of creates this jagged thing until it goes to basically a chaos number. And then it organizes itself and then it goes back to chaos. So there's a bridge in, the ratio is close into a number. It's 4.669. There you go. 4.6 nice. And that's the Feigenbaum constant. Now, let me see if I can find it. This was really cool. I was watching stuff on this Millennium Bridge swing. Whoop. I should be able to find a picture of it. Okay. So this is, here you go. So when people walk across this bridge, it shakes. They did this bridge in London, the Millennium Bridge, and it was supposed to be this great feat. And they launched the bridge and they let people walk across it. And then if enough people walk across it, it starts to shake. It just starts to wiggle. And so it was, they designed it because it was a suspension bridge, and it was supposed to, harmonic resonance. John, you're on the right track. So human walking, if you walk in, like when soldiers walk over a bridge, they walk out of step. They don't 1, 2, 1, 2 like they do on ground. When you cross a bridge, everybody's supposed to step out of sync with each other because it will human stepping creates impact waves at about 2 hertz. Normal walking pace like this will create a wave, and that wave will eventually make a bridge shake. So most bridges, walking bridges, they know to not make, they can't tune them to 2 hertz. They have to put dampers on them and shit like that. So they, when they made this one, let's see, the people, they were like, oh, this is just a pedestrian bridge. People walk out of sync on this. This should not be a problem. Well, at a certain point, what they recognized was that people tend to step more on their left foot in sync after a while as something is a little shaky under their feet. So that it starts to move just a touch. It would start to do like a little bit, not anything that would affect your ability to walk, but it would create a little bit of a shimmy, right? Well, it's that people would psychologically, they did fix it. They put dampers on it and a bunch of other stuff. They people would overcompensate for the fact that it was moving, that they could feel a little bit. As it moved a little bit, they would overcompensate, and then everybody was eventually walking in sync to and widening their footsteps, which meant that people who walk, like you and I, walk forward, depending on our leg length, about, at different paces. But humans' legs, when they're in walking stance, only really go side to side so much. So they're way more easier to get in sync going side to side. So if you put a little weight on your left foot, it would create shimmy at half the hertz of the bridge. So it was like, at a 1 hertz vibration or whatever it is, would start the thing going like that. And the fucking thing would just was nuts. Yeah, it's fascinating. And they found out, fascinating, which I found was amazing. They to check how many people it took and why it would do this. Your left, right, left. The reason, or like they were like, how many people have to be on this bridge before it starts fucking going like that? It was 156 people. Now, 146 people did not make the thing shimmy. Not enough to be noticeable. It was the extra 10 people that created enough of a waiver where everybody started walking in sync to not fall over. 156 people. 146 people, it didn't feel it at all. And that brings us back to this guy. Here's what you have. You're like, on this one, you got like, all the way over in the tail end here, you've got, 1 person, 2 person, 10 people, 5 people, whatever. Then you got 50 people where they start to affect each other and they don't recognize it, but it's below the level of expectation. Then this is from 146 people to 156. That shift was enough to shake the bridge nearly apart. And this, kids, is why I call bullshit on fake narratives. Because fake narratives become pervasive mythology if they make it to this point. And somebody has to jump in here and jumble this split before it reaches these breakoffs. The reason this woman that we were reading, and Neil Irwin, the woman here on Market Watch or whatever, in these articles, and why Rex Nutting cannot figure out why do people perceive this way? Why do people perceive this idea this way? Because politically active people saying it because they want things to look worse than they are, or because they want things to look better than they are, or worse for the person they don't like, or harder for the person they do like, mounting narratives is fine until they pass that on to somebody else, and then that bullshit hits a mass accelerator, and then that's just how everybody thinks. And the only thing that stops something like this from happening, and its inevitability, is that it's broken up before it becomes so complex. Once it's at this point, it is possible to break it up. And you could argue that right here, that little spot right there, see this right here? This gap where there's not all this craziness. See that? That's my show right there. Where I steady things out, and then this is the inversion of the idea, where we do not fear complexity and all things can be understood. This is the part where everybody's crazy right now. See this right here? These junction points? Think of these as like lines of like bullshit that people want to believe, bullshit people don't want to believe. True things they don't believe, and true things they want to believe but don't believe, or true things that they wish they could believe but they're scared more about, these kind of things. Like that's what that crisscross of ideas is. That's what this is. And this is what I want my show to be, right? Right there. Sort of a reset on the balancing ribbon of this. And by the way, if you'll notice, even though it still looks like this mesh right here, after a while, it equalizes out. Here's one tier up from the bottom here, one tier down from here, and they oscillate. So if you kept going and kept going and kept going, there'd be one spike over here, one spike over there, one spike here, one spike over there. And that's how narratives go. This is how, rabbits in a warren will populate. This is how you can track rat populations in a city. But at some point, you need a reset point on the bullshit. And this is me. I'm this a tiny little reset point right here. Because without it, utter chaos, and the system will tear itself apart. It will not be a sustaining system. So anyways, that's what I've been thinking about lately. I remind you of Sheldon. Is that how our brains function? To some degree, your neural pathways do, yeah. It's how you evolved from, sperm and egg into the wonderful creation you are today. I mean, you are like a roll of the cosmic dice on a level that you can't even fathom. This is, this is the one cell as it gestates and its health angle from when you're conceived to when it breaks up. And this is months of back and forth and months of back and forth. And then you hit a certain point where cellular complexity, this would be true of your life too. This is like you trying to walk, you trying to read and recognize regular language, you trying to count, you trying to tell which relative you like, and then suddenly you have an amazing ability to comprehend stuff that it on a computation level is extraordinary. We can't reach enough. You must try to write it up. Oh yeah, that's probably true. I'm so smart I outsmart myself. Yep. How is Leonard? Leonard got the hot chick. It's true. Almost the theory of everything. Almost. Yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect number because it goes on and on. It's, it's not, if it was 4.6 solid and it was just like, look at that, plug that shit in. But it tends to pie its way out into the middle of nonsense. So there's always a limitation because I believe math is invented as an explanation. It is a descriptor. It is not the reality in and of itself. But it's good for tracing other descriptors like language, like society, like economics, because those are also invented, not discovered. And yeah, that's the equation right there. Xn plus 1 equals Rxn times 1 minus Xn. So and then that's what you get. You end up getting this turned sideways. Number file, I suppose. Pretty. A Buddha-brought fractal. That's nice. Yeah, here they are, like kind of turning them sideways and whatnot. And then they spiral out on the Mandelbrot. That's where remember these videos early on in the in like late 90s, early 2000s? Can't comment. Is there a drug called Molly? I was referring to house cat. Yes, I have a cat named Molly. We saw her. I brought her on day before yesterday. That fractal is the cover of a Heart album. Exactly. Very trippy. A lot of acid people like to get high and stare at that. And fractal geometry explains all kinds of things. I mean, it was in many ways probably the mathematical root of most Tesla discoveries. Ultimately, we used it mostly in the 90s for Blind Melon album covers and shit like that. Did I find the Feigenbaum constant in what? In yin and yang? Constants depicting circles as circles and then subcircles as the first cycle? Possibly, I suppose. There you go. Did you? Oh, it's a math. I'm not on. Why do I have a membership on math forums? I feel left out. Boo-hoo. Just rude. So anyway, so this is these are the kind of this is what I do when I sit on a couch reading a book. These are the kind of things I dive into. And yeah, this is why, by the way, this is why the Feigenbaum constant is the root of non-repeating equations that spiral out and look very much like life when and it is the root of a lot of consciousness theory. Only the problem is consciousness is beyond mathematics, and mathematicians have not yet figured out a way to deal with that. They think they discovered a box everything fits in, and don't recognize that they made that box and it's part of everything, but it can't encompass everything, and that's kind of an ongoing thing. Friggin' hippies. Yeah, there you go. Weather prediction. Like pendulums. This is why if you put 3 metronomes on a you can use like 2 Coke cans. It has to be something movable, some springs or something like that. You take 2 Coke cans and you put like a layer on top of it, and you can balance 3 metronomes, and you start them at different phases. They'll eventually all lock into phase. Everybody thought it was a magic trick, and it turned out it was just because the minor compensatory movements, which is what led us to the whole thing before. These are the kind of things, though, that if you enjoyed Doctor Strange, the movie, you'll recognize his hands becoming hands, becoming hands, becoming hands in the hands and the handsy hands. That's all. They did that with like a computer basically creating Mandelbrot's out of the image of his hands. There you go. Barnsley's fern. That's a mathematically generated fern thing, like limb or leaf setup. I'll tell you what the problem is. I would I'm a big fan of that part of it because it can explain a good deal of things just because people tend to fall into patterns out of our own kind of intellectual laziness in some ways. The chat replay is dead. I'm very sad. I probably killed it with my boring math stuff. That said, I'll let you guys go, and I'm going to go do my regular Saturday tech issue stuff and try to get my, I'm going to improve that screen that I had with Johnny so that it works better for next weekend. Although I'll be on the road, I got to figure out how I've got to recreate my setup, put it in my laptop so I can take it with me. They're talking about me in the chat over on John's show. Oh, I think he wanted me to come on. Is he on already? He might have asked. I don't know. I could never tell because he's always saying that people spoof his number and ask, so I don't trust any calls or anything I get from John anymore. I mean, it's a secondary number. I don't give him a real number. I mean, come on. Here's a good idea. How about this? I'll tell you what. And now I'm sitting alone talking to myself. And it's the essence of chaos theory. So I'm just going to go full Goldblum. Never go full Goldblum. That's what you did. You went full Goldblum. Never go full Goldblum. COVID and cancer has kept me isolated. Thanks for being here, and Sparklers, love y'all. Thanks, Jeanette. I'm glad you're here with us. Do I talk to myself? Yes. Well, I talk out loud. And many of you may know I when I'm working on tech issues, I talk out loud by myself in an accent. And the accents get increasingly more difficult, and there's probably an equation that explains this. My accents get increasingly more complex the more difficult the problem is. Yeah. This is super weird. John is starting shortly. The chat is open. I see. Okay. Let me see if I can pop over. I can probably send people that way. If he's up and about, we'll see what we're doing. Nope. I can never tell. Hold on. Is he on? Do you know where you're going? And by the way, thank you guys for helping us get over the 800 mark on subscribers on Twitch. If you can, please subscribe. If you've already subscribed, please think about resubscribing. If you feel like subscribing, if you want to feel like making love, please think about that. Okay, right, guys are Valorant. See, this is why I don't have, because I'm following him in here. Let me see if I can. I gotta turn this off because it'll make a lot of noise. Sorry about the noise, kids. Okay, that's silent. There you see. Try to bring him up. Whoops. Tuttering John. Whoops. Yeah, okay, it says he's live. There he is. Ha ha, there he is. Now, I'm following. Yeah, he should be in here. I guess maybe his chat isn't opening, and it says live. So let me check again. We'll see if we can go back there. Yeah. He always plays that weird song at the top of his thing. I'm sure he says the same thing about me. There he is. And hey, there he goes. Yeah, so we'll start a raid. I'll send you guys over to John's show. Whoops, or did somebody already do that? Oh yeah, there it is. Thanks. Excellent. Yep, we're raiding there over there. I'll let you guys go on all the other platforms, and I'll see you guys later. Have a wonderful Saturday. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And sorry about the math. There's a lot of math today. It really was. But, you know, that's what happens when I have my, it's almost like a giant mullet. I feel like my hair is somewhere between the Chance Boudreaux haircut grown out on Hard Target, Van Damme one. What kind of name is Chance? My mama took one. And the villain in The Crow. Are we having fun or what? Hey, you skank! So there you go. Much love. I will see you guys later. And oh, we got one more subscriber. Thank you so much for the subscription. I saw that just as you're going out as I was leaving. And Robert, thank you so much. Love you guys too. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Carol, for the super chat as well. Thank you, Jill. Oh, hi, Chud. Chud came by. Hold on. So those of you that didn't get sent over to John's thing, Chud wants to say hi. Hi, Chud. Do you want to visit? Come here. You want me to pick you up, big girl? Oh, she's a whole lot of woman. Chud's a whole lot of woman. Yes, she is. There she is. There's Chud. Yeah. Chud, they're super chatting for you right now. They love you. They're sending bits. They're supporting the best way they can. Oh, that hair's very Game of Thrones. You think it works that way? That's a good idea. Legolas, just not blonde. Right, that works. I'm fine with that. Yeah, hi, Chud. She just hugs. She's a hugger. She's also afraid I'm going to drop her because she's a big fat cat. She's a big fatty. Yeah. And she's half pigeon, so she purrs like a bird. There she is. Hi, kiddo. Here, hold on. I got you. You're not going anywhere. You're okay. Hang out. She's okay. That's big old Chud. Mama Chud. Who used to live under my house. Yes, please help me feed Chud in this holiday season. She eats more than I do. She's big girl. Chuddy girl. She's a big chuddy girl. Chuddy girl. Yeah. My baby. My Chud. Yeah. She just purrs just when she shows up. Yeah. That's right. There she is. John does want me on his show? All right. God, I'll hop over. Hold on. I got to put my cat down. I hope John appreciates that I'm putting my cat down for John. Hello. You okay? You okay, girl? Chud always looks like she's not impressed. Here you go. Kiddo. Hold on. Oh, there she goes. Whoa, and she is furry. Got my wings. My wings are happening. We got like my like back here. These are finally coming in. Even when I kind of just relax. Yeah, that's just, if I let my arms hang, like, oh yeah, they're there. They kind of push my arms out. It's good. Still have to, a little bicep balance, left arm to right arm, but we'll get there. We'll get there, piece by piece. Not bad for a 52-year-old man. All right. I'll jump over there. I'll sign off on my show, and then I'll pop into his for a minute. Tell him, somebody in the chat, tell him to send me a link. I'm going to have to explain everything mathematically to them as well. That's what's going to happen, isn't it? It's just going to happen. Just how it works. All right. Much love, you guys. Thanks so much.